In their quest to understand the major issues of biodiversity, the Sedna 4 team heads to Panama, a paradise for plants and animals, with 1,500 species of trees, more than 250 species of mammals, and nearly 1,000 species of birds. Arriving from the Caribbean, the port of Colón, with its giant cranes rising into the sky, is an astonishing sight. Panama is at the southern end of Central America, between Costa Rica and Colombia. This small country is famous for its canal across the Isthmus of Panama, a maritime passageway that allows ships to quickly cross between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
It's impressive because every year there are approximately 1,500 boats that navigate the Panama Canal to transport hundreds of millions of tons of cargo.
The Sedna 4 also traverse the Panama Canal. Dwarfed by giant ocean freighters, the sailboat makes its way through the complex system of locks that allow ships to sail between the different elevations of the shipping route between the two oceans. The narrow canal cuts through Panama's tropical forest, famous for its extraordinary biodiversity. And among all the animals of the forest, hides a small, fascinating creature, the sloth. The team stops on the island of Barro Colorado, also called BCI, located right in the middle of the Panama Canal. The island is home to one of the largest tropical rainforest research centers in the world. Each year, hundreds of scientists come to the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute to better understand rainforest ecology. One of the world's eminent sloth experts, biologist Bryson Voyrin, awaits the team.
So here's our boat, right down here.
Oh, great.
And we're gonna go on a little short trip around the backside of the island and go look for our sloth.
3 toes or 2 toes?
The 3-toed sloth.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the more friendly type of sloth.
Great.
So here we are. I started with sloths because I've always loved climbing trees, and I was really excited about working in the canopy in the rainforest because something like 80 or 90% of all of the biodiversity in the rainforest is up in the treetops. And sloths are a perfect animal for me to study because I can actually climb up the tree and catch them, and they can't run away all that fast. Now, I work a lot with the brown-throated 3-toed sloth, which is the sloth that's common to all of Panama. And they're a very slow-moving arboreal mammal, and they spend their entire lives in the canopy. BCI is an amazing forest to work in because it used to be a hilltop before the Panama Canal got flooded. And now, with the canal, it's actually an island that's been cut off from the mainland. And no one is allowed on BCI except for scientists with the Smithsonian. So it's a really amazing place to work because it's completely cut off from the rest of Panama, and it's right in the middle of the Panama Canal. Because when they filled the canal, they didn't cut down the old trees. So right now, we're on the tops of trees. And depending on the water level, you can see they pop up a little bit, and the bad ones are the ones just below the water. And if you go over it with a boat, you can hit them. It's like a minefield. You know, boom, hit the wrong one, and it takes the engine off. So we swim back. Oh, there's a tree right there. Looks like a crocodile, but that's a tree. Jean, I think there's a sloth actually right in the top of that tree right over there. If we go right through this little canal, we can get to the back side of the tree. Boat actually, it's the easiest way to find sloths on BCI because you can actually see into the forest from the edge. Now, hiking around BCI, it'll take me up to 1 week to find a sloth. And that's a long time to find such an animal that's so common on BCI. But by boat, I can find several in one day.
So I'm gonna go right through.
This is really not an easy task. First, you need to locate a sloth from the boat. Then you need to get onto the bank and walk around trying to find the same tree. No, it really takes skill.
think this is our tree.
Okay.
Right here. And I think I can just barely make out the sloth up there. Like right at the top of the tree.
Where? I don't see it.
Just in the top of the tree, right in the sunlight, right up there.
We have binoculars, and Bryson tells us where to look, but honestly, I never saw it.
And what's this here?
Huh? Oh, wow.
Is it
That's actually, this is sloth poop. It's this really strange thing with sloths. They only go to the bathroom on the ground. They spend their whole life in the trees except to go to the bathroom. So they climb all the way down once a week and go to the bathroom.
A monkey, a real monkey.
It's normally dramatically slower. The running motion he uses, I believe, is something he came up with himself. It's very unique.
Hey.
It's fun to watch.
Hey. Grab the sloth real quick.
Okay. I have it. Nice.
Bryson has captured a female who shows no sign of aggression.
Go back with you. There you go.
Nice. Well, here's our sloth.
Do they drink water or just by the leaf?
Just by the leaves, actually. It's amazing that they never drink water. And in the dry season, I wonder how thirsty they get.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's doing yoga.
Yeah. Okay. Females have a call. They're attracted to the scent of the males. Males have an oil gland on their back. And when the female smells the oil, they go real high pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. It's another friend.
And the males will hear that call and will spend days looking for the female.
And what's the use? I know it's a ridiculous question, but what is the use of a sloth in the jungle?
That's actually a great question. When Europeans first discovered sloths, they thought that they're the most ridiculous animal in the world. They have poor vision, they have poor hearing, they can't walk on the ground, they're totally defenseless, they can get eaten by anything, and they thought they were just ridiculous. But when you think about it, they fill a perfect evolutionary gap in the forest. They actually eat up to 2% of all the leaves in the rainforest each year.
Wow.
So they have a huge impact on the forest. And just the fact that they're so slow and so, what people would think is ridiculous, but they're actually perfectly evolved. The way that I study sloths on BCI is by using radio collars on them. And once they have been fitted with a radio collar, I can track their movements around the rainforest using an antenna. And that way I can find them over the course of different days.
It doesn't move, huh?
Yeah, she's very calm. She's a happy one. Sometimes the sloths will fight you a little bit. They can be feisty, especially the big aggressive males, but she's happy. So before we let her go, we'll get a weight of her.
Equipped with a new radio collar, this female is now ready to return to her environment. Unwittingly, she will be contributing to science, helping Bryson to better understand how sloths move in the forest. The Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute is located on one of the islands in Lake Gatun, an artificial lake created by a dam on the Chagres River that was built as part of the Panama Canal construction project.
We're actually sailing over a submerged forest. There are trees, railroads, even old villages under the ship's hull. It was all flooded when the dam was built.
This man-made island is now a protected area, reserved for scientists. Biologist Megan Eccles is a specialist in bees. She knows the island of Barro Colorado well. She's been coming here regularly to do research for many years.
What's that strange noise?
Oh, that's the mantled howler monkey. The males have these specialized vocal sacs so they can make that huge growling sound that you hear. And the purpose of it is to announce to other groups of howler monkeys in the area where that particular group is located. One of the biggest threats to howler monkey personal security is conflicts with other groups. So to avoid conflict, the males in each group will howl at sunrise, sunset, before rain starts, and when they move into a new feeding patch. And it announces to the other groups, hey, we're here. So you can tell there's several groups vocalizing right now. It's because when one group announces its location, the others feel obligated to do the same so they can stay away from each other. I've got a bit of a reputation as the bee woman. So I collect colonies that fall in the forest or are located in inconvenient places, and it gives me a good diversity of species to work with. So I can look at community interactions, inter-colony behavior, that sort of thing. Bees are pollinators. They're pollinators in most major ecosystems. Forest systems are dependent on bees to get their reproduction done. Flowers have to be pollinated in order to form fruits. Fruits are needed to make seeds. Without any seeds, you don't have any seedlings. The forest can't regenerate itself. You take away the bees, you take away the forest's ability to grow and to heal if it's damaged. It's been shown if you deforest anywhere tropical, stingless bees and orchid bees don't adapt. So even if you have intact forests on either side of a large area that's logged, the bees won't be able to make the crossing. So if you lose them in one part of the forest, that forest is going to be in trouble.
That's the nest that you were talking about?
Mm-hmm. Straight ahead.
Oh, wow.
It's right here.
Is that there?
Mm-hmm. Just right here. Little yellow tube. What we're looking at now is a colony of a bee whose scientific name is Tetragonisca angustula. They actually don't have a common name like honeybees have a common name because there are hundreds of different species of stingless bee, far too many for each one to have an individual common name. This particular nest probably has about 1,500 bees in it.
Oh, yeah.
They're so calm and they're so serene. They're a very zen little bee.
And what is that substance?
The material that the nest entrance is made out of is actually a mixture of resins that they collect from trees, so just tree sap, and also a wax that they produce themselves. It's very soft, very pliable, and one of the reasons they leave the end so raw, mostly this yellow part is just wax, is because at night, this species will actually close their front door. They shut the nest entrance. And it's not so much to defend against predators as it is to defend against parasites, which are their biggest concern here. So there are a lot of species of bee that nest in the canopy, which is a little inconvenient. They're difficult to see. It's one of the nice things about tree falls is they bring canopy nesting bees down to our level, so they're much easier to observe. Now, be a little bit careful when we approach the nest. These bees bite, but they don't sting, so there's no venom involved. It's just like a little pinch.
But a little bite?
Just a little bite.
But
yeah.
they're gonna bite, eh?
They are gonna bite, yeah.
Great. I love jungle.
So this is a colony of Scepter trigona. It's another stingless bee. Very social. They can live in absolutely massive colonies of thousands or tens of thousands of individuals. They are a bit aggressive, much more aggressive than the last bees we saw, but they only really respond to something that vibrates or shakes their nest. It's a direct threat to their babies and their queen.
How big it is?
This colony, it's probably several square feet, so very, very large space. They can get up to sometimes half a tree trunk if they're left alone and they're thriving. So those are the colonies that get into the hundreds of thousands of bees. The bees that are leaving are most likely foragers. You can tell which ones are foragers when they return. The ones that are searching for pollen have little balls of white or yellow stuff on their hind legs. Bees that are coming back with nectar, however, they're not identifiable when they're flying. They carry the nectar in their stomach. The pollen is for the larvae, the babies. They need protein to grow. The adults are fully grown. They don't need the protein. What they need are carbohydrates, sugars for energy. So the adults only consume the nectar.
Some are going out of the colony with something in their mouth. Are they cleaners?
They are cleaners, yeah. There's house cleaning going on today, apparently. So probably they are expanding the inside of this nest. Although some of the other bees who are leaving are probably cleaning out the bathroom, so to speak.
And what is the big problem with bees in the world?
There's no one problem. If there was, we might actually be able to solve it. In honeybee populations, something has been occurring in the last 10 years that scientists refer to as colony collapse disorder. It's this mysterious phenomenon where all the workers, all of the foraging bees in a colony will suddenly disappear, and they leave behind a healthy queen, healthy juveniles, but the workers are just gone, and without the workers, the colony dies. There have been a lot of studies that have tried to identify what is causing this, and we're really not that close to an answer still. There's a lot of research that suggests it could be fungus, it could be a virus, but the fungi and the viruses aren't found in every colony that collapses, so it's still unclear. There's a very famous quote by Albert Einstein who said that if bees were to disappear, society would collapse inside of 10 years. Fully 1/3 of the food that we consume is produced by bee pollination. So you can imagine we would lose hundreds of fruits, some vegetables, and it would have a huge impact on worldwide food availability. Prices would skyrocket for products like almonds, oranges, these basic things that people tend to grow relatively easily and consume readily. They're so dependent on bees that agricultural industry would grind to a halt in some areas. It would be devastating.
The team returns to the canal to locate the female sloth. The signal from its radio collar will guide the search and make it easier to recapture her.
On BCI, I worked on the behavior of three-toed sloths, looking at which plants they ate and how much they moved over the course of 2 years. So here's where we caught her before, and you can hear she's somewhere nearby. So that's the ping of her radio collar. But it's not all that strong of a signal. So what we can do is kind of do a 360 spin. Ooh, it's a lot louder.
On the island?
You can hear the difference in the signal intensity. So it sounds like our sloth actually might have left the one island and swam to one of these little islands right here, which is pretty cool.
Are they good swimmers?
They're actually really good swimmers, believe it or not. They swim much better than they walk. So a lot of times people see sloths swimming across the Panama Canal. So pretty exciting that our sloth actually sounds like she swam. The results of the big study is that actually that sloths move a lot more than we thought. They're not just sedentary creatures that stay in the same tree. We found that some sloths actually travel hundreds of meters a day, while others will just sit in the same tree for 4 or 5 days and then maybe move 2 trees over. So their movement is actually very different based on which individual it is. right up there. I think I might see her, actually. I think she's straight above me. Right above there.
Wow. Where's the face?
Her face, she's actually kind of sitting like this, upright. Okay.
So this time, Bryson climbs up the tree. He has no harness, no rope. I tell you, he's a real monkey. It's amazing.
Hi, John. Thank you. Okay, I got her.
Bryson uses a long pole to capture the sloth, which tries to escape.
Okay. There we go. There we go.
Wow. Nice.
Right like that.
All right.
Wow, it's a girl?
Yep, so this is our girl.
Yeah. Wow. Attack. I was going to say.
Oh yeah, they will. They'll
They
pinch
will
you.
attack, huh?
Such a small creature, but still equipped with pretty sharp claws. I still have some souvenirs from my contact with sloths.
Well, they spend their whole life, in the trees,
Yeah.
so it actually takes energy to open their claws. They can keep them closed with no energy, so they don't expend any energy hanging.
Do they bite?
No, they don't really bite, but they'll definitely try to claw you. Especially mothers with their young, they'll be real defensive with babies. But she's pretty calm. She's pretty chill.
She's lovely. She's so sweet.
It's a really great animal to work with because you can hold them without sedating them. And so for me, it's so special to be able to get to actually hold the animal that I work with a lot.
Yeah.
So I get to develop a relationship with them. Whereas a lot of animals like monkeys or something, you get to touch them once when you initially catch them, and then you rarely ever see them again. 3.1 kilograms? Nice. So she has gained weight since we last saw her.
Oh, great.
So she's been eating.
Here you come.
The female can now regain her freedom. In her own way, she is contributing to the conservation of her species by allowing Bryson to study her movements. The brown-throated sloth is not an endangered species. In fact, it is the most abundant of all sloth species. But other species of sloth are not so lucky. The team heads to the small island of Escudo de Veraguas, where Bryson is studying the pygmy sloth. Many scientists consider it the rarest mammal on the planet.
But I'm really the only person in the world looking at sleep in wild animals in their natural environment. And the first thing we found out is looking at sloths. Sloths in captivity sleep like 15, 16 hours a day, and sloths in the wild sleep 9. There's this huge difference just in one species that we looked at, and that's the first thing we ever did. So I'm trying to unlock the mysteries of sleep in wild animals in their natural habitat. We arrived at Escudo last night at about midnight and set anchor, and then we woke up this morning, and it's been really nice all morning. And we're gonna go out to the island probably in the next hour or so and go see if we can re-find some of the pygmy sloths that I have radio collars on.
Bryson and his assistant Sebastian have installed radio collars on 10 pygmy sloths. Now they need to find the animals again.
The sloths that I put radio collars on are all on that side of the island right over here. And to get there, we got to go around the island this way, through the channel, and into the mangroves.
Boat driver, ready?
I'm ready when you're all ready.
Let's go.
Okay.
We don't actually know how many pygmy sloths there are, but estimates vary from as small as 63 to maybe a few hundred. And these pygmy sloths have been cut off from the mainland for almost 9,000 years. And in that time, they developed a very small body size, so they're about 40% smaller than the mainland sloths. And it just goes to show you how quickly evolution can happen in species.
Many scientists believe that the pygmy sloths on Escudo de Veraguas Island live only in the mangrove forests, the highly productive marine ecosystem that flourishes in the intertidal zone.
Mangrove forests grow between high tides and low tides on the coast, and that is where Bryson has installed tracking collars.
Just look straight in the middle of these branches. Straight in there, there's like a dark clump. It's on the back side of the branch. Yeah, it's right up there.
Really small.
You can see his face just looking at us.
He's looking at us.
Yeah. This is the same spot where I caught a sloth last month. So this could be her, but I can't see a radio collar, so I'm not sure.
But it's not so tiny.
No, they're actually, I mean, they can be kind of big, but they are definitely smaller than the mainland sloths. And their skulls are actually much smaller and have different forms on the top of the skull. So because it's such a different developmental size in the skulls, they're actually considered to be a different species. You know, they're marooned out here on this island. They have nowhere else to go. And if they're only living in just the mangroves, that's a tiny habitat for the whole species. And right now, actually, a lot of times people cut down mangroves for charcoal, and that makes their habitat much smaller. So it's very difficult because they have such a small habitat to begin with. And every time they lose a little bit of habitat, it means less area for them to live. Really, every trunk counts in these mangroves because the pygmy sloths really do rely on them. For me, it's so exciting to be able to work with a brand new species because most people never get to do that in their lifetime. And this sloth was just discovered 10 years ago. We're just trying to find out the basic science of the species. I mean, we don't even know how long they live. We really don't know anything about them. And so working out here right now, the main goal is just to understand a little bit more about their natural history and their life. Right now, I'm gonna try to climb up a little bit and bring him or her down and just do a visual inspection to see how big it is, and also if it has a radio collar. And if not, we'll just let it go. There we go. And if you grab him, just like a baby doll from the back.
Yeah. Okay. Like a baby.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, hey, baby. Remember. So that's a male, right?
This is a male sloth because it has this patch right here, and it actually has an oil on it that smells kind of sweet. And that's an attractant for female sloths. So they can smell that oil from a long ways away, and they know it's a male sloth.
We found ourselves in an area of the island where Bryson insisted we go to greet a family of local fishermen, Nobe Aboriginals, I think. They're Aboriginal people who have been living on the island for generations and have really developed a kind of harmony with nature. They live mainly from fishing. They manage to sell a little, some fish, a few lobsters. But it's marvelous. When we arrived, it was the children who came to greet us. That's often the case. They were playing on the beach, and slowly we joined in. We spent hours. Often, contact between scientists and local communities is difficult enough, but there I found it really interesting because often it's the children who actually introduce us to the adults. And then every time you can create a contact between scientists and local communities, I think it's really important. It was really a beautiful moment. Yes, a lovely moment.
Look, it's eating. There's a sloth right there. It's a female. Yeah, she's eating a leaf. She's got it right in her mouth. Oh, she's got a baby. Let's see if we're real quiet. Maybe we won't scare her. Ooh, she got my shirt. Hey, come here. Oh. Look at her. She is beautiful. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful animal. And look, she doesn't have a radio collar, so this is a new sloth with a baby.
That's a good thing to, see a baby. If there's less than 100, that's good news.
Yeah, so that's one more for the population at least.
Yeah.
And a baby this size is probably about 9 months old, I'd say. So that's a pretty big baby.
Oh, yeah.
He's just holding on to her. All right, let's let her go eat some more. She looks hungry. Come back over here, mommy. Come on. Right here. Let's see, she was right on this one. Let's see. All right. It's one of the rarest mammals on Earth, and there's 2 of them right there.
What a privilege to be here.
Part of my research in working with pygmy sloths is to understand more about their life requirements, how long they live, and what parts of the island they really are using. So what I did is went out and caught 10 pygmy sloths, put the radio collars on them, and let them go back in their trees. And then we went out there to re-catch them and re-find them to see where they've gone in the past few months. And what I really wanted to find is that they weren't just using the mangrove patches, that they were actually using the rest of the island, because there's only about 10 hectares of mangroves on the island, but the whole island is 3.5 square kilometers. So that's a very small patch of mangroves. So they're boop, boop, boop. That's Leo.
Leo.
So he's back over this way. Oh,
Okay.
there he is.
Oh, yeah. Right there.
Yeah, look at him, just kind of, he's laying right on his back. They expose their bellies like that and kind of warm themselves up. Look at him just swinging around in the tree.
In the mangroves again.
Yeah, he's still in the mangrove, so he hasn't really gone anywhere in the past month or so. When I caught him originally and put the collar on him, he was maybe 10 meters over that way.
Oh, yeah.
So he's not moving very much.
What's there?
Another sloth.
Yeah.
Wow. And like 5 meters away.
Looks like a male, eh?
Yep, you can see the orange on his back right there.
Yeah.
He's also a male, so Leo maybe has some competition next to him.
Yeah. Let's see if we can find some more.
And I've got 9 more to go.
Yeah.
The team traveled the territory, focusing its research near mangrove forests. In the days that followed, Bryson was able to find 9 of the 10 pygmy sloths equipped with radio collars. But despite searching for days, one was still missing, which worried Bryson.
When you have a total population estimated at about 60 individuals, of course, each animal counts. We really covered the area. We looked everywhere, but to no avail.
I can't tell which way the sound's coming from. It seems to be all over the place. I wonder, it could be bouncing off of the water or the mangroves.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's one signal that we just can't find. I don't know, maybe with you guys' help we can go find it.
Yeah. We should take the Zodiac, it's gonna be easier.
Before leaving, Bryson wanted to speak with local families to get some help in their search. Sebastian, his assistant, knows the people of the island very well.
Está cerquita, así ahora los chiquillos se asustan. Por acá llega, hay mucho sol. Y vienen, sí.
What she says that she had a well back there, and the sloth would come around because these are clean animals. They come down to the well to poop in the well. She thinks that the one that live in a mangrove, they live in a mangrove, but there's a lot more right behind in the jungle here.
So let's check in the forest then.
Yeah, definitely.
Muchas gracias.
What an amazing revelation. According to these families, pygmy sloths can also be found in the interior of the island in the rainforest, so their distribution is not limited only to mangroves. Of course, this information is crucial for our search for the missing sloth, but it could also become essential for science itself.
So I'm marking the locations of the ones that I found so far, and number 5 is the one that I just don't know where he went. Hopefully we can find him. So Sebastian, let's check this cove right here, the Horseshoe Cove. It sounds like he might be right over here. All right, I got him on the 900 frequency, so he must be straight back that way.
Okay, guys, we're gonna have to tie the boat.
Yep. Go for it, Sebastian.
All right.
Thank you.
The signal that we were following with the radio collar led us into the heart of the island, deep into the rainforest. It was quite something. Oh yes, it was terrible. We sank deep into the mud. You could almost think the mud was alive. There were all sorts of insects that seemed to enjoy feasting on our flesh. I don't think wearing shorts was a very good idea. To be sure.
Sounds like it's just over this way, I think. I think she's right up here. Yeah, you could just see her fur right up there.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to get a closer look at her and just see how she looks and do a physical examination. It's been 6 weeks since I last saw her.
Hey, Bryson, watch out, man. Careful. Mind it break, man.
Hey, buddy. Okay, ready? Coming to you. Sweet.
Great.
Whew, Victoria. Hey. Whoa, you're looking big. Oh man, she looks great. Look at her. She looks very healthy.
So she makes quite a distance from the mangrove forest to here.
Yeah, she moved quite a distance actually, over 800 feet in the past couple weeks, which for a sloth, that's a big distance. When I first caught her, she was in the top of a very large mangrove tree, and now she's spending her time in this beautiful tropical forest on the interior of the island. So it's hard to say which she likes better.
Yeah.
But here, she definitely has a wider variety of plants to eat.
Yeah.
Kind of like going to an all-you-can-eat buffet with lots of different things to choose from. One thing I think that this shows is that even though the mangroves are being cut, that may not be as big of a risk for the pygmy sloths, because if they're able to eat other things in the forest, at least they have other food sources besides just the mangroves.
What is the size of the island?
The island is 3.5 square kilometers. And only, I think, 10 hectares of that entire island is mangroves. The rest is this type of tropical forest. So they estimated 63 sloths being in this 10 hectares. So that would be something like 6 sloths per hectare. The island is 3.5 square kilometers. That's 350 hectares. That's something like 1,800 sloths, potentially, if it's the same density in the mangroves as in the forest. So it could be that actually the pygmy sloth is not as rare as we thought. Still only on this one island, but maybe more numbers, which is good.
What's the next step now?
The next step would be trying to figure out how big the population is in the forest and actually doing an expedition out here in the middle of the island. But finding them is very difficult. Even if you spend weeks out here, I think you might not have an accurate idea of just how many sloths there are.
Ready to go?
All right, Victoria.
Back to home, sweet home.
She's going her own way.
She knows where she's going.
She knows exactly where she's going.
Yeah.
It was knowledge of the territory by the local people that really guided Bryson on his quest, and it opened a new avenue for research. This is interesting because if the population of pygmy sloths of Escudo de Veraguas covers the whole of the island, well, maybe we will be obliged to review the status of the species, and this is great news. And good news about the environment is really needed. We headed to the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean Sea. The archipelago consists of 3 main islands, Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Brac. Tourists and foreigners come here mainly because of the great beaches and the scuba diving conditions that make this place one of the best diving sites in the world.
Located south of Cuba and northwest of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands have an impressive marine biodiversity. On land, the population explosion on the island of Grand Cayman has reduced critical habitat for species that are threatened with extinction. This is the case of the blue iguana, an endemic species which is considered one of the rarest animals on the planet. It can measure up to 1.5 meters in length and weigh up to 14 kilos. The blue iguana can live close to 70 years, but it still has to survive in its habitat. In the 2000s, there were few more than a dozen animals in the wild. But the biologist Fred Burton has made it his mission to save them from extinction. A daunting task for a reptile that scientists have classified as extinct in the wild.
On Little Cayman, other conservation issues face the residents of the small island. Here, biodiversity issues are not apparent, but an invader has taken up residence in the pristine waters around the island. And since the islanders depend on tourism and diving, well, they are worried.
In the early 1990s, a few aquarium fish were accidentally released into the sea in Florida. Native to the Indo-Pacific, they began to reproduce and populate the Caribbean. This invader, which now threatens the age-old balance of the coral reefs, is called the lionfish.
In less than 20 years, this species has really caused incredible havoc. One lionfish living on a coral reef can reduce the population of other small fish from 80 to 90%.
The decline of the ocean's large predators, combined with the uncontrolled spread of the lionfish, is a recipe for disaster. If nothing is done to control the invasion, the tourism sector of the Caymans' economy is in serious danger. The professional divers of Little Cayman have watched as the lionfish spread throughout the island's waters. Now these dive guides organize a weekly lionfish hunt to try to control the dramatic expansion of the species.
The first lionfish was discovered in Little Cayman in about 2008, here on the south side of the island. And it was just one lonesome fish, and it was quickly discovered, and we went out there and grabbed it. And then we didn't see any fish for quite some time, possibly about 6 months. And then we started to see not just one, we started to see more than one popping up on different reefs. And that number just quickly escalated into tens and then into many, many, many fish.
It took just a few aquarium fish to cause one of the worst environmental disasters in modern times. The lionfish invasion continues to spread and now extends far beyond the Caribbean.
Genetically, in fact, scientists speculate that these fish could have come from common ancestors, the few creatures released off the coast of Florida. That's all it takes to upset the millennial balance of an ecosystem.
They eat a lot. Pulled stomachs out of fish and seen a large amount of fish and crustaceans, everything in their belly. Seen them hunt fish actively on the reef, and they just don't stop.
They have a foreign predation strategy, which means the fish here don't recognize it as a predator. They've got these really big, pectoral fins, and what they'll do is they'll sort of herd a fish towards the reef, right? And then they do something that's very unique. And what they do is they start to blow water out of their mouth towards the prey. And what they basically do is they point themselves right at the lionfish, and then the lionfish just sucks it in. This whole island relies on dive tourism, and we are the ambassadors to this environment, so it has sort of fallen down onto our hands to look after the environment.
The people of Little Cayman are worried because they depend on tourism. The spectacular beauty of the coral reefs and their colorful fish attract divers here from all over the world.
Each week, the population is mobilized. A squad of professional divers set out to hunt for lionfish. Their goal, kill as many as possible. Attempt to control the invasion so that other species of fish can continue to grow on the coral reefs.
The latest scientific study that's been completed this year in 2011 shows that to have an impact on lionfish, you have to have a large, concentrated effort on a small area to be effective. The industry that we're trying to protect services the Bloody Bay Marine Park, which is a small area of only about 3 miles long. So we have a high concentrated effort that we're putting into that Bloody Bay area to try and keep our marine park relatively free of lionfish so that we can maintain the biodiversity within the marine park. All right, we're going to Penguin's Leap. It's up on the north side. It's way past CCMI, so it's going to take us about 30 minutes to get there probably. Good?
Okay, great.
We have lionfish as well as the rest of the Caribbean has lionfish, and they've just invaded all of the Caribbean. Then there's going to be no difference from diving here in Little Cayman or in Cancun or in Belize or anywhere else in the world. So I think it's going to be very important that we continue killing these animals, and that's the only thing that's going to keep this special spot different than the whole rest of the Caribbean.
marine park, we've done a really good job of eliminating a lot of lionfish to the point where we don't see them on a daily basis anymore, which is very good. But there's still lots of other parts of the island we don't get to. It's one we're going to get to right now, where there are still lots of lionfish that need to be removed. So hopefully we'll have a big turnout tonight. That they have, where they put tuna.
Even though the boat seems very busy, it's we've virtually got everyone that's left on the island to come out today to come and cull. With most of the dive masters being away for our shutdown during the hurricane season, it's very important for us to keep culling all the time. Whether it be inside the marine park or outside, wherever we get the opportunity to go, we have to go no matter what. Well, best case scenario, we're hopefully going to have a big catch. We've got 16 people in the water with 14 spears. So 14 spears, we're hoping for a fairly big number, maybe above 80. We're always hoping for 100. We have had days over 100, so we're always hoping for a big catch. Bucket. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5.
Whose bucket is that?
Mine and well, it's actually just mine and Watsy's.
The efforts of the divers were successful, but despite their success, it is work that has to be repeated constantly because the reproductive rate of the species is very impressive, and if the effort is relaxed, the invaders will continue to eat all the other small fish, and there will be a complete degradation of the coral reef.
75. 75. That's 75 fish. If you average it out to 20 fish per day that they're eating, that's 75 times 20 is how many fish got eaten within the last 24 hours.
That's a lot of fish.
That's a huge amount of fish.
The work of biologist Fred Burton on Grand Cayman is truly inspiring. With a small team, he tries to reintroduce a natural species, the blue iguana, which many biologists already consider extinct in the wild.
So what do we have here?
So these are the original things. I always knew I wanted to get involved in conservation in some way, shape or form. Even as a small child, I was crazy about that kind of stuff. In Europe, it's very unusual to find an ecosystem which has not been influenced at all by humans. And here it was everywhere, and it was a very exciting thing for me to be seeing these things. And that was the time that I started getting involved with these crazy giant blue lizards. The first time I met one, I had no idea that these things existed. In 2002, we did a very detailed survey, and it was the most depressing survey I've ever been involved in, because all of the places we used to see iguanas, there were none. Optimistically, there cannot have been more than 12 left in the wild, and they weren't finding each other to breed. So the population was doomed. It was functionally extinct, as we put it, technically speaking. They were there, but there was no future. And this was shocking to us, because we thought we had time, and no, we didn't have any time at all.
Fred Burton's task was enormous. In fact, there were only a few creatures left in the wild, and many biologists thought that Fred was something of a dreamer, that the task was too daunting for a single person.
he patiently tracked down a few wild animals and began a breeding program. Today, the Botanic Park on Grand Cayman is home to the last blue iguanas on Earth, and the captive bred population is healthy.
So this is the captive facility, Jean.
Yep.
We have about 300 iguanas here. Yeah, here's one. This is, we call this one Wan Lin's. He's one of our founder males. These are the original wild origin animals that we are using to represent the genetics of the original population. They grow up to 10 kilograms or maybe a lot more occasionally. Rare dominant males can get quite giant. They're vegetarians. They eat almost exclusively plant matter. They eat leaves, flowers, berries, fungi sometimes. They're very intelligent. They quite clearly are able to think ahead, make a strategy, and then carry out that strategy. We've watched this with mating strategies of the male iguanas, and it's very complex, their behavior. They're not dumb creatures by any stretch of the imagination.
It all started here, in a small incubator in Fred's house.
If we'd left these things in the ground, it would be 50-50 whether they would hatch successfully or not, because the ground could get dry, it could rain really heavily, the pens could flood. So it's much, much safer to take the eggs out, put them in the incubator here, and here we have better than a 90% hatch rate. It's a very secure kind of way of making sure we get as many baby blue iguanas as we can from those nests. When they hatch, they're tiny, they're about this long, but they grow very, very fast. And by the time they're 2 years old, they're naturally predator-proof, effectively. They get too big for the native snakes. Jean, these are the cages where we have the 2-year-old iguanas, the ones that we're getting ready to release into the wild.
Scanner. $86661. Correct. All right. Good. Let's get in a bag. So it will sleep there for tonight?
Yes, we'll keep them in these bags. We'll hang the bags inside our backpacks, ready to take in the morning, and they will cool down tonight, and they'll be very peaceful.
Fred Burton's great challenge now is to reintroduce the species in nature. His successes, but also his difficulties, have become famous around the world, which was what convinced the government of the Cayman Islands to set up a protected area where he can release the young animals in the wild.
But getting to the protected area is no easy task. We have to walk for hours in sweltering heat, on paths with razor-sharp rocks, not to mention the poisonous plants, cactus spines, and snakes.
So Jean, we are on the boundary now of the Collier's Wilderness Reserve. This is the protected area on our left now.
How big it is?
It's about 190 acres. That's about roughly, very roughly a square kilometre. It's not huge, but the island isn't big, yeah?
Yeah. Rough trail, but beautiful.
Yeah, I love this environment. I think it's like a natural rock garden.
Yeah.
In 2008, we had a disaster. Some drug-crazed guy and a tame dog, a attack dog on a leash, came into the captive facility here and killed 6, 7, 8 blue iguanas. It was like a slaughter. It was crazy. And the news got onto that, and it just went like poof all over the world. But what was interesting is as soon as it went public, the population of the Cayman Islands got up in arms. There were people raising money for us. Companies wanted to pay for a security fence around the captive facility. It was in the newspapers non-stop for 2 weeks here. It was the disaster and the media coverage that made the politicians of the time pay attention a little. So what I thought was, okay, let's make the world care about blue iguanas. And then we can tell the world if the blue iguana is going to survive, we must protect some of their habitat. It took a long time to work, but it is working now. At last it is working. All right, here we go, Jean. This is our little home from home in the woods, yeah?
Home sweet home.
This is where our volunteers sleep when we have them camping out here. This is Larko. He's here to meet us. I didn't know if we'd see him today.
That's
cool
a
creature,
big
eh?
one.
Yeah. This is the dominant male in this area. He's the biggest land animal around, so he's not afraid of us. He's not afraid of anybody. He was born, I think, in 1998, and we released him in 2001 in the Botanic Park. And he lived there very happily for a number of years, and then he got very big. And some of the people who visited got a little bit afraid of him, and it got to a point where it's, well, maybe he would be better out in the wilderness. So we brought him out here and released him with some females. His objective is to have exclusive control of as many different female territories as he can. I hatched this guy from an egg in an incubator. We reared him for 3 years, I think, in the cages in the captive facility. We released him in the Botanic Park, and then he became the guy who just hung around in our captive facility there. So we got to know him very well, and then we had to move him out here. So this is an old friend of mine. Yeah, he knows me. We have now 20 different unrelated wild iguanas, and that's good. That's enough to give us the genetic diversity that's necessary.
On Little Cayman, another expedition is being organized. This time it's Sedna 4 that will serve as a platform to reach a shoal called Pickle Bank, south of Cuba.
Researchers have wanted to come here for a long time. It's hard to get to, so local fishermen probably don't use it much. Scientists hope to find large fish like groupers and sharks here, and determine whether the explosion of lionfish populations is slowed by the presence of large predators.
Hey.
Hi. I'm Savannah.
Hi, Savannah.
Such a
Nice to
pleasure
meet you.
Katie, so nice to meet you.
Hi. Hey, man.
Hey, John.
How are you?
Nice to see you, man.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. John.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
Mariano. Sedna's ready, so we should probably get things ready and leave right now.
Thanks first? Or?
Thanks first, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are, Little Cayman, and here the famous Pickle Bank, where we'll be heading in pretty soon, actually. So what do you expect to find there?
We're expecting to see lionfish, but we're not sure what the population density will be. There may be a high population density, there may be a low population density, but we're going to go and find out.
And that's why it's so important for us to go there, is because nobody knows what it's going to be like there. And it's so important, you know, and it's so great to have the Sedna as this jumping off platform for us to really get out there and collect some data about a place that there is no data.
Do you think that because it's far away and that's a place where the human impact is, you know, lesser than here, Do you think that we should find less lionfish than here?
Here on Little Cayman, we put a lot of effort into, culling the lionfish off the reefs, getting them out of the environment. And at Pickle Bank, there's nobody removing them. So it could be that we drop down there and we find an explosive population of lionfish because there's been no human mediated removal of lionfish. But then what Neil was saying, the other side of it is that it could be that we also haven't fished out the other large predators that would be either competing with or preying upon the lionfish. So it could be that we go there and we find a lot of these large-bodied groupers of the larger predators, and then we find a low biomass of lionfish. So there's two opposites of the spectrum that we can see, and we don't know which one it's going to be yet.
It takes us 2 days to get to Pickle Bank. And then we have to fight with the wind and waves in the middle of the ocean to get our inflatable boat into the water.
We're going to do a dive today. It's an underground seamount. It doesn't reach all the way to the surface. So it's an area that usually people do not go to. And hopefully we're going to be able to correlate it to the reefs back in Little Cayman and see how that differs.
Once arrived there, it was really strange for us because we could anchor the Sedna 4 right in the middle of the ocean. Normally it would be too deep, but as we are on a shoal, a kind of underwater mountain, we were able to anchor. On the other hand, these conditions create currents, so we will have to be very careful during the dives because for the divers, it could get tricky.
We really hope that we come up with something that we can share with the rest of the scientific community about an area in the Caribbean that's very data deficient, unexplored, and even if we can't find a high density of groupers like we were hoping for, we hope we can still bring some light to what's going on here on the seamount Pickle Bank.
$250 feet, stand by. 100 feet. 50 feet. We're on site now.
Sedna 4, musculus, 906, 906, divers in water.
When we jump in, we don't actually know what we're going to find until we get down there. And that presents challenges for us because we can start, doing the science and then all of a sudden find out that the wall drops away from us and we just find ourselves too deep.
Our transects are 100 meters long by 3 meters wide. What we're recording are the species and sizes of large-bodied predatory groupers as well as the invasive lionfish.
Seeing large fish like groupers is already a good sign.
.6 meters. We are really on the wall, and if I move a bit, we'll see it going down, 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 and whoops, it's gone. It's very deep. And as soon as I shift a bit on the wall, we're back to depths ranging between 23 and 26 meters. What we have is the Caribbean Sea, so there's a lot of fish, a lot of life. What we want to check, of course, is whether or not there are lionfish here.
The invader has managed to establish itself here. But there are many more large fish here than around Little Cayman. That is good news.
Mike has a yellow buoy, and that's what really helps me to follow them in the wave, because with just bubbles, it would be extremely difficult not to lose track of them. So I always look out for his yellow buoy. That really allows me to know where they are.
Groupers. More groupers than lionfish on that dive.
Sedna 4, musculus, musculus. 948.
948.
It was really fantastic that we were able to find this reef system that had a lot of groupers and not so many lionfish. We didn't really know what to expect going in here, and although all the data hasn't been completely analyzed and we don't want to draw any conclusions too soon, it is very encouraging to see a large biomass of groupers with a small biomass of lionfish and a lot of the intact, healthy small fish. I just keep thinking how few people have been fortunate enough to be here and do this type of thing, you know?
It'd be impossible to do this without the Sedna. It would be impossible. You have to have a staging platform like the Sedna. You have to.
It's a very pristine reef, and that makes it, next to the science, also very interesting for us to dive.
Yeah.
It's a little extra benefit.
We saw less lionfish on this dive than what we expected. And it can just be because of the time of day.
You know, it's maybe good news also. You know, if there's less lionfish and big fish, that means that maybe the ecosystem can balance, you know, the invasion. But, you know, that's a big but.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I've done most of my diving in Little Cayman, which is generally considered to be a quite healthy reef, but there were way more fish at Pickle Bank, and there was pretty good coral cover. We did see some coral disease, some coral bleaching, but not too much. I was struck by the amount of algal cover that was there as well as the coral cover, and it could be just, you know, it's the summertime and so the algae is in its peak growth season. I wouldn't say that it was algae dominated reef. I thought that there was overall a very good balance at Pickle Bank for sure.
For several days, we continued to dive at Pickle Bank. It's probably too early to draw conclusions, but the research has generated a lot of hope because we learned that those places that have not yet been fished still contain many large fish, large predators such as groupers or sharks. The lionfish is already established, but we wonder if the natural health of the ecosystem might not succeed in controlling the invasion of this alien species. It's still too early to draw that conclusion, but this expedition does produce a certain amount of hope. I think we really need environmental success stories. The work of Fred Burton is inspiring, but there are still many, many more steps to take. We wonder if the iguanas that breed well in captivity will succeed in doing so in the wild, for example. And will the protected habitats be enough to repopulate Grand Cayman?
All of the forces which drove them to the point of extinction are still operating. The population of the Cayman Islands is doubling every 12 years. What that means is the footprint on the land here that's taken over by humans is doubling every 12 years. And what that means is that the dogs and cats that people like to have around them will be at the boundaries of these protected areas. And cats, feral cats particularly, go wild in this island very easily. And they hunt and eat baby blue iguanas, and all sorts of other wildlife as well. But they're a huge threat to the iguanas. As the island becomes more and more urbanized, we have more and more fast traffic. And roadkill is becoming one of the big problems that we have to deal with. So we are going to have to secure the boundaries of these protected areas. We're going to have to put up some sort of a barrier that will prevent dogs and cats from getting in, and will prevent the iguanas from getting out, because if they leave, they will be getting into harm's way. Jean, we will get rid of our packs here, and we'll just take the iguana in. Matt, I think this one's in yours, yeah?
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay, so that's 575.
75.
That's good, so we're in here. Okay, here's the box. So now this little iguana, Jean, is a very confused animal, and he's wriggling around in here, but once we get him out, we need to give him a minute to get used to his environment. Eh? So here he is. So these beads, the small pale blue, the red, the big blue, this is just an arbitrary colour combination that is unique to this animal. So anytime I see these beads, I know that this is this animal. And, oh yes.
Whoa!
So now he will spend all night inside this box. But then all the stress of today's walk will be gone, and this will be the safe place that he stays close to. And probably for 1 month he won't go more than 2 meters away from this box. Okay, next. And the population has gone from about 12 now to about 650, 700, somewhere around there. It's very important, I think, for people working in conservation to spend at least part of their time working on things that can succeed. It's important for personal motivation, but it's also important for the way that conservation is presented to the world. People get very tired of hearing bad news stories all the time. Joel, there's a hatchling.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the first wild-born young iguana we have ever seen in this area. That would be like Zarko's baby for sure, yeah?
So it is working.
It's working. It's
great.
Working.
So spreading the news.
Yep. I'm just texting John Moreau to let him know that we got wild ones running around out here already.
It's a great day.
It's cool. It's really good to see it.
I got a text from Fred, and the text said, just saw the first hatchling in the new reserve. Breeding is successful out here, and that just made my day.
Zarko had a big love affair with Juanita, and the female we released with him. And I bet you anything, this is Juanita's baby, and Zarko is the father. I played a part in establishing this botanic park. I played a part in so many things here. It's important, and it makes you feel that you've done something for the planet. It doesn't cancel out all of the rest that's going on, but at least it's my part.
Eliminating the lionfish from the Caribbean is a huge challenge. Everyone knows that this invasive species is here for good. But how do we control it? We need a natural solution, because we can't catch all the lionfish in the oceans. Neil and his fellow divers have developed a special relationship with groupers around Little Cayman. They are training them to eat lionfish. This solution probably won't work on a large scale. And who knows if the groupers will develop a taste for lionfish. But the initiative is an excellent demonstration of citizen mobilization to stop the spread of the invader. But the lionfish is also feared by local fishermen. According to an urban legend, the lionfish is deadly.
There's a lot of myths surrounding this fish, that this fish is poisonous. It is not poisonous. It is in fact venomous. These dorsal fins are the venomous ones, and it's not actually the spike itself that is venomous. That there is just the delivery mechanism. What is venomous is actually inside the soft tissue here, and as the spine enters the body, it pushes the soft tissue back, which compresses the soft tissue, and that releases the protein-based venom, which travels up through tiny little grooves alongside the spine. And that is how, once the spine enters your body, that the venom can then enter your body as well. So something that I think is important to point out is that this is the liver of the fish. And what's interesting to note that this liver is very large. It's because these fish, which are wild fish, are suffering from a disease called fatty liver disease, which is not a fish, it's not a disease that wild fish suffer from. This is a disease that aquarium fish suffer from. So why are these wild fish suffering from fatty liver disease? And it's because they're eating too much. They eat pretty much anything they want. They're indiscriminate predators. And because of that, they're growing too fast, and they now have fatty liver disease.
Another way of stopping the spread of the lionfish may be to eat it. The flesh of this fish is exquisite, and governments are trying to convince restaurants and consumers to put lionfish on the menu.
That's great.
A consumer market for lionfish would put even more pressure on the species. But it's a challenge, because local fishermen fear the venomous spines of the lionfish. And yet, it's delicious.
Toast to a permanent lionfish culling solution. Cheers.
Cheers.
The Caymans, like many islands in the Caribbean, face big challenges. On land, urban development weakens and reduces critical habitats for many species. At sea, the invasion of alien species such as lionfish now threatens the entire balance of marine ecosystems. Citizen involvement is important, and the colossal work of Fred Burton should serve as an inspiration. These scientists dedicate their lives to the preservation of biodiversity, and we must never forget that it is this biodiversity that allows our own species to survive on this planet as well. We're headed to Costa Rica in Central America, a country that is known for its extraordinary biodiversity. In fact, over 25% of the land is now protected, and tourists from around the world come to visit the country to enjoy its wonderful ecology.
Framed by the Caribbean to the east and the Pacific to the west, Costa Rica is located between Nicaragua and Panama. Its lush forests are home to one of the last big cats of the Americas, the jaguar. This mythical animal has suffered from habitat fragmentation and the continual reduction of its hunting territory. The jaguar's troubled coexistence with humans now threatens the very future of the species. The team heads to the highlands of Costa Rica, to a private reserve in the Talamanca region. In this protected area, scientists can study the jaguar's behavior. The farm also hosts Aboriginal families who are rediscovering their roots and an old harmony with nature. The team is meeting with scientists Jan Schipper and Jose Gonzalez of the Sierra to Sea Institute. Jose is a jaguar specialist and knows the reserve very well.
Jaguar is probably one of the most amazing animals in America. This is one of the last big predators we have. Only pumas share the same, like the same ecology and niche. It's their third largest cat in the world. And well, it can go from 30 kilos up to 100, 120. They can live around in the wild around 20 years. There's some cases reported of, like longer, but usually they die before because they get old and it's difficult for them to hunt.
Jaguars exist as a symbol for wild, as a symbol that we still have places where big predators can exist and prey base can exist.
Genetic studies have shown that jaguars actually belong to a single family, extending from Argentina to Mexico. However, as forests continue to shrink, jaguar populations are increasingly confined to isolated pockets, small areas that are often not connected by migration corridors.
We have identified so far in the farm 12 different individuals. It's a big concentration because there's no hunting, there's a good prey base, we have all the mammal assemblage, entire complete mammal assemblage. And so this is probably a shelter, a good shelter for them. So it's what we call in population biology a source population. So animals, breed here, produce here, and they move out and colonize other areas. So right now we're going to where we set up the trap and one snare and a couple camera traps. It's in the middle of the forest and the road is not very good, so it's gonna take a little while and hopefully not many raining. It's pretty hard to drive. Whoa. We saw this morning some fresh tracks, so I think we have really good chances. But obviously these are really, really smart animals, so well, you never know, you know, it's a matter of luck. Hopefully we'll get the animal.
The biologists hope to capture a jaguar. They want to install a satellite transmitter that would tell them about how the jaguars make use of their territory.
So we use some pheromones to attract the animals. So we set them in these small sticks all the way, so like pointing at the trap.
And you can see the two cameras right over here.
Oh yeah. So yeah, two cameras too, here and here. Oh. And this is the trap. So it has a little mechanism like right in the bottom. It's just like a small table. If the animal steps on it, this gate just falls down. Yeah. We're gonna check it right now just to see if it's working fine. Ay, ay, ay.
These little cameras here detect heat and motion. So anytime something warm passes in front of the camera, it will take a picture. These will work day and night, and they can take video and still images. Okay, so we've got a couple of different kinds of baits here to choose from. What we put on this one so far is the fat cat predator bait. These are pheromones mixed with some urine and other things that we can use to try and bring the cat in.
And the cats like them. The jaguars,
well, we don't know if they like it, but they're attracted to it. This attracts a lot of other things too. We don't just get cats, we'll get bees, as you can see, insects, butterflies are very attracted to this.
Even other mammals like tapirs,
other mammals.
Yeah. It's something really different, and they're not used to these strong smells. Yep. So it's just something to attract animals in general.
Yeah. Okay, what we're gonna do now is just take a little bit of this other pheromone, which has a little bit more scent to it. It's a little bit stronger. And we're gonna apply it here to the side of the tree. This way we can disperse the scent across the trail a little bit better. I can use a stick to sort of put it wherever I want, but this moss holds the scent nicely, even if it rains. So I can just take a little bit of this and just apply it on to the side of here and spread it out just a little bit.
Okay. So I think we're gonna use this place here. It's narrow, we can close it. There's a couple bakery entrances around. I think it's gonna be perfect.
This is to create a natural path for him.
Natural path, yeah. He's not gonna jump over that. He's just looking for the easiest way.
So, Jose, what are the chances that we catch one?
I think we have great chances. The place is great. I mean, this road, it's used lots of time by the jaguars and pumas. The place is really safe. There's only one path, so I think we have great chances. It's a great place, not harm for the animal, so it's probably fine.
With jaguars, it's like a game of hide and seek. Once you are there, you need to erase all traces because they can detect us from afar. They are very cunning animals.
During his years tracking jaguars of the reserve, Jose has managed to photo-identify many animals. He can now recognize them by the different pigmentation patterns of their fur. Approximately 6% of jaguars are melanistic, or all black. These are often called panthers. Cameras installed on trees allow biologists to photograph other animals of the forest as well, such as pumas or even the jaguar's prey. All this data is essential because observing a jaguar in the wild is rare. Sometimes the videos captured by these cameras are simply astonishing.
Oh, look at that.
Oh my
What's
God.
this? What is that? Is that a cow?
That's definitely a cow, and that looks like Cora.
Yeah, that's Cora. Amazing. This is amazing.
That cow's probably been dead for at least 2 or 3 days. You can see by all the flies and the entrails coming out.
Yeah.
You don't see that every day.
No.
These images are rare and valuable, but they also demonstrate the problems of coexistence between cattle farmers and forest predators, like the jaguar.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Look at that.
That's a big jaguar.
Look at that.
See the string in his
Look at that.
mouth. Wow.
And there she goes.
Oh, amazing.
That is awesome.
That's great.
That is awesome.
To avoid possible injury to an animal, it is important to check the traps every 4 hours, day or night.
Ready? Yep.
Capturing a jaguar is certainly not a simple task. They are very cunning animals, but we are patient.
Nothing, eh?
Nothing. Oh, but wait a second. Look at that. Hey, guys. There's a track.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try to look for more, probably more tracks.
Careful stepping over.
Yeah.
Trap's right here. Oh, there's another track over here. Looks like he came in this way and went right up to the trap and right over it.
Oh, yeah.
We missed.
It's really frustrating because it's days we've been trying. We thought we were getting anywhere, and then we saw that there was a track just nearby, and we missed out.
So close. Ah, that was close.
This. Look at that.
Converting forest into agricultural land causes a significant loss of jaguar habitat. Less forested areas means less prey for forest predators such as the jaguar. So it is not surprising to see big cats attacking livestock. Coexistence between jaguars and livestock farmers has become a serious issue for the conservation of large forest predators.
We need actually to work really hard with people, and we need to work on agricultural landscapes and, you know, like all the private lands, because we need areas where the animals can move between protected areas with no harm, not causing conflict, not getting hunted. We have passed the paradigm of working only in protected areas. Now we need to focus on the areas that are not protected but are critical. Yeah.
The team has decided to widen its search area. Jose and Jan want to investigate every part of the farm to study the movement of the jaguars.
Yeah, this is a perfect place. Ah, look at there, look at there.
Oh, yeah.
Those are jaguar marks.
Wow, even there.
All the way up.
So that's a good spot for jaguar.
This is a perfect spot. Yeah. This is the place we should set up the camera. Yeah.
You hold there, please.
Yep. So usually we use this height because we can catch pretty much any mammal that comes in front of it. We always use these shady areas so we don't get sunlight direct to it.
Historically, the native peoples lived within the jaguar range for hundreds of thousands of years without a whole lot of problems. As populations of humans expanded, the parks sort of had to draw the lines and put fences up, and that's been the major problem. If you just fence these parks off, it's just not enough area, and you can't, especially in an area as small as Costa Rica, even 25% of the nation, put in some kind of protection just isn't enough because you have little blocks of habitat all over, none of which are really big enough to support jaguar. I think seeing the farm from the air will give you a very good perspective of the work we're trying to do.
It is the biggest private forest reserve in Costa Rica held by one person. Over 25,000 acres. Wow. Yeah, you see the border of the farm, you see? That goes for many, 20-some kilometers that way.
So from here, everything to the right is the challenge that we face. Everything to the right here is what we need to talk about in terms of connectivity. You can see there's only little patches here and there of forest with agriculture, clear-cut areas for cattle and so forth. So each one of those has a sort of value system in terms of what use they can be for animals to go through. Pastures obviously has very little value in terms of a jaguar being able to cross. But some of these agroforestry areas you can see here, which is a mix of trees and sustainable agriculture types, is actually something a jaguar will pass through. So we don't necessarily need a continuous virgin forest from here to the coast. We just need a mix of forest types along with different types of more sustainable agriculture to connect it. That's a lot easier to sell that to landowners instead of saying, oh, we need to take your land away and put it in conservation. What we need to do is teach people better ways to manage their land so that all the different species can survive here together. Yeah.
The problems of the rainforest are not only caused by deforestation, there are a host of other factors. For example, in the neighboring country, Panama, the habitats are also threatened.
Panama is known for its famous canal, which allows ships from around the world to pass quickly between the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Globalization and shipping are responsible for the ever-increasing spread of invasive foreign species. The arrival of a new animal, bacteria, or even fungus can often seriously upset the balance in ecosystems. For example, in Panama, frogs are disappearing. A mysterious microscopic fungus has invaded the country and is quickly killing off many of the rainforest's amphibians. The golden frog is the emblem of Panama, but you won't find any in the wild. It is now considered extinct, and only a handful of survivors remain in captivity. Biologist Edgardo Griffith is trying to understand the strange disease affecting Panama's amphibians. The team accompanied him to a river that he has studied extensively.
This is like prime golden frog habitat. This is like a very good breeding area because it's fast-moving water. The first time I came to this stream was in 2003, and I was impressed with so many frogs and large numbers of them. So in a way, to me sometimes was like, how can they, all manage to be in such a small stream and be successful and eat and breed in here? But it was just so many. I could spend hours, 10, 12 hours, just sitting, getting recordings of the vocalization. The water, the stream, especially like in quiet pools, the whole bottom of the stream was moving because it was just loaded with tadpoles, and by seeing that, you knew that it was a healthy environment. Watch your head here.
And then what happened?
At the end of 2005, beginning of 2006, we knew about this fungus that was moving from the west, coming, eastward. and we knew that it was going to get here, and we anticipated that it was going to arrive around 2007, but the fungus arrived in 2006.
The Kirtid fungus arrived in Panama in 2006, and it was devastating. Frogs started dying at an alarming rate, and scientists were powerless to stop it.
Some scientists believe that the fungus dates back to the 1930s and 40s, when a species of African frog, Xenopus laevis, was used to develop pregnancy tests. At the time, scientists found that hormones in the urine of pregnant women caused egg laying in this species. It was an important and promising scientific discovery, and Xenopus laevis was sent to laboratories around the world. Though it's self-resistant to the disease, the frog was a carrier of the chytrid fungus, so the fungal pathogen was spread around the world. It mutated to a new form and invaded much of the tropical rainforest, killing most of the amphibians in its path. Found mostly in wetlands, the fungus acts like a sealant on amphibian skin. Because amphibians breathe partly through their skin, the chytrid fungus causes a series of metabolic problems. Eventually, the frog suffocates and dies. Some have survived, but many species have gone extinct. Today, the disease continues to wreak havoc around the world, and unfortunately, there are no effective cures for the epidemic.
It's crazy when you think about it. Edgardo has already identified 56 species of frogs in this simple little stream. Today, finding one is a challenge. And the golden frog of Panama, the very emblem of the country, is considered extinct everywhere in the wild.
The fungus kill 90% of the amphibian community, in some cases 100% of the individuals of certain species. Came, kill, stay, and at the same time it's moving. It's moving eastward towards the Darien or towards Colombia, but it's also coming up from South America.
We cut the sound of the stream, few insects. I mean, it's really quiet.
It's extremely quiet. For somebody that's been here before, that knows how noisy this stream was, frog-wise, it's remarkable not to be able to hear them, you know. And it's just, you know, it gets you. It gets you, and it's not just the feeling of, you know that the frogs are missing, but to know that they're missing is really sad, actually. And, you know, a lot of us goes away when the frogs are disappearing, you know, and I don't want people to feel that way. In this tree, I found what I call the last golden frog 2 years ago. It was at night, and she was sleeping up there. The animals that are left have no opportunity if we don't take them out of their environment and put them in captivity. And for as ugly as that sounds, is the only option. But if somebody can come up with another solution, I would be more than willing to try.
Captivity is the only option for the moment. So they built small, sterile laboratories where they housed the last forest specimens. It's a little crazy. Everything must be sterilized when you enter the lab, because just on the other side of the door is the fungus ready to kill. And it's also crazy at the same time to think that we've had to build modern Noah's Arks to save the last living examples of a species from the devastation brought on by humans.
The reason why we had to build this center was to reduce the risk of extinction of certain species of amphibians that were being affected by a fungal disease. So the only option for us was to go to the field and collect most of the time sick animals, and we brought them here and we applied treatments to help them get rid of the fungus. And the goal of this facility is to, keep as many as we can in captivity until we can bring them to where they belong. Some of the animals that we have here are the last of their kind. They represent what's still alive of one particular species from around this area. Sad enough, you know. I'm a biologist. I used to be a field biologist. Now I think I'm like an extinction biologist. As you see here, we have a lot of tanks, hundreds of tanks, and within those tanks, we have hundreds of plants and rocks. And one of our biggest challenge here is to make sure that the fungus that we know that's right outside that door doesn't get in here. So we have to disinfect constantly everything that comes into the facility to make sure that that fungus stays out there and not in this facility. The center in Panama City could be seen somehow as a Noah's Ark. Back then was God's will. Nowadays what's happening is because we are causing it. So we are the ones that have to come up with ideas, with Noah's Ark, and make sure that we bring those animals to where they belong, because they don't belong to a facility, they belong to this stream, you know.
The team scours the riverbanks for hours without finding a single frog. In the face of such carnage, scientists can do nothing. For the moment, they have no solution. They are merely trying to gain time, making every effort to capture and save the last individuals able to resist the disease.
There's one.
But it's a daunting task.
This is a male, Mylisca siwa. And this is a species of tree frog. Normally, we don't find them during the day like it was here or like in the stream, you know. You normally find them on the side, you know, side pools, then in the bank. But this animal, I don't think that's in a, 100% in a healthy site, because a healthy frog of this species will be trying to escape, to run away in a very energetic way. Like, they're really strong based on, according to the size. Some of these animals might have a heavy infection and they still survive.
So after more than 5 hours, he's the only one that we found.
That's how bad it is. 5 years ago, we probably already seen, couple hundred, 300-400 frogs in, the 200 meters that we have walked. And it's how bad it is. It's how empty this place is, one single guy.
Could you see some effect already, into that ecosystem?
Well, yes. First of all, in the water, you see a lot more algae growing over the rocks. And also, there are a lot of parasites and mosquitoes and things that can easily transmit diseases that we don't even know that they exist yet, because amphibians were there to keep all these things in check, in a way.
So the entire equilibrium is broken.
It's totally broken. It's compromised. And, but by saying this, I'm not saying that it's too late. Because if we come together, because I know we can, to find a solution, I think that not just amphibians will be back, but everything else is related to the amphibians, including the forest.
Some regions, such as the lowlands of Panama, are less affected by the chytrid fungus. For scientists like Roberto Ibanez, it is important to focus research in these areas to try and understand why some species are more resistant than others.
We arrived at the river at dusk and started our trek. We began to hear frogs. And it was a sign of hope for us. Of course, we didn't hear much, but already it was very encouraging.
What species it is?
That is a glass frog, and it's a male that is calling and has a egg mass just next to it. The males guard the eggs once they are laid on the leaves.
That's a tree frog.
It's a tree frog, yes. But they are called glass frogs because you can see the bones through their skin and the internal organs.
At present, this fungi is found not only in the highlands but also in the lowlands of Panama. Yet we don't know much about what is happening with the amphibian populations in the lowlands.
Right here.
Yeah.
Good. Qué bueno.
This is a very interesting species because in places that are already infected or that have declined, you still find this species around. So this one might be one of the species that we need to focus more into it and see why is there survive, you know. And even though this is not endangered species, it's important to do this kind of surveys because it tells us if we have this fungus around this area. She might be infected, but she's not sick.
Yeah.
You know? All right, now we're gonna let this little guy go.
The export of organisms is a problem all over the world. And we know this because it isn't the first time we hear of it. Often organisms that are introduced into new areas become vehicles for pathogens or potential pathogens, harming the ecosystems into which they are introduced.
One morning at Edgardo's research center, the news was not very good. A specimen of a very rare species had died of an unknown cause. Obviously, captivity is not an ideal solution, but right now it is the only one scientists have found.
You know what happened? I think that because she was gravid and we didn't put a female in the tank. You know, the eggs got bad. We used to have 3 of these species, or at least 3 animals that look similar that were collected in the same stream. So this is a big, loss for us. What we're gonna do is try to get as much information from this animal as possible that we can use to make sure that the other 2 that we have stay alive and with us. And if they turn out to be a new species, they will be even more important than they are right now. We don't have a cure for this fungus. We can cure the animals once let's say I come here, I find a frog, I collect the frog, then I go to the lab and I give a treatment to that frog to help the frog to get rid of the fungus. So voila, yes, the frog is cured. But if I bring that frog back here, she will get reinfected and die. It's a fact. We've seen it many times. They are important. They are as important as an elephant, as a tiger, as the white shark. They all have a role in the environment, and they all belong to a place, and they are all part of something. So we need to make sure that amphibians continue doing the dirty job for us.
But I think there is still some hope. For example, in Costa Rica, where we work with jaguars, a species of frog is defying the prognostics of science.
One day, in the Talamanca Reserve, a child came up to Jose. In his hands, he held a strange little frog he had found near the river. The scientists were astonished.
Here are some marks. So that's the site? Yeah. We have found a couple here, so we probably may be luck. There. Wow. It's a beautiful little frog.
Do you know when they discovered the fungus around here?
Yeah, actually, the last time it was 17 years ago. When they discovered this population, there was already declining, and they reported actually the extinction and disappearance of the frog in the river. And that's where they discovered the fungus here. It is officially recorded as extinct here and in all Costa Rica right now.
Do we know why this population is resilient?
That's exactly what we're studying right now, actually. This is a unique opportunity because we don't know if it's resilient or if it's tolerant. Maybe the fungus also changed. So this is like a live laboratory to study amphibian decline and why this population is recovering, as in many other parts that they disappear and they're gone.
So this frog, in a way, is bringing lots of hope.
It is lots of hope, because if this one is recovering, there's hope for other species in the country and in the neotropics to be recovering. And also this part is really important in amphibian diversity. So that means that if we found this population, probably, eventually, and hopefully we're gonna find other species that were totally and considered extinct in Costa Rica.
The rainforest is threatened from all sides, but I think it is important to understand the critical role played by each link of the food chain, each species in its ecosystem. The jaguar, for example, is what one would call an umbrella species, in that they control other populations that interact within the same ecosystem. The role of the jaguar is very important, just like that of the frog.
So? Bad news.
Nothing?
Nothing. We checked all the traps again.
Well, that's life, I suppose.
Yep, we're obviously very concerned about what might be causing this. We're looking into it. I think the next steps for us are to put out some more camera traps and just re-survey the entire area, because we know how many individuals there are and which ones are around. We can actually go back and see which ones are missing from the population and maybe do an estimate of what's happened. Yeah. Even if we have all this conservation momentum behind us, it can just take a few people to come in and maybe snare some animals, which is what we're hearing, maybe using some of the bear snares that they use in the U.S. that are kill traps. It's depressing.
That's sad.
It's the reality we live in.
Yeah. No, nothing. No tracks. No tracks around.
We didn't see signs. We were on trails in an area we've been working for 5 years with very positive signs for jaguar and puma and a lot of their prey. We had no signs whatsoever that they were jaguar in that area. And because that's the low part of the farm that borders with the outside world, we're very concerned that maybe poachers have been coming in there and using some illegal snares to kill the jaguar.
It's early morning in the small village of the reserve, and the people are on alert. Rumors are circulating that poachers may have come into the reserve. Everyone lends a hand. Every effort must be made to protect the jaguars.
We actually have a picture here.
This is a picture that came off of Facebook.
Oh, that's sad. It's a shame. I mean, they're really rare, and this was just for fun, you know.
And these are young kids. I mean, look how young they are. These are the people we need to be reaching out to make sure that the next generation doesn't grow up like the one that we currently face. Yeah. They can be teaching their parents, but I think if we can convince them that this is a problem and that they shouldn't be taking pride in posting pictures like this on Facebook, that maybe we can change the future for these species.
A private militia is preparing to go hunting for poachers. Here, conservation measures are not just expressed with words.
It's actually kind of worrying because there are some rumors of heavy poaching and hunting in the area, and in general in the country recently, so many jaguar deaths, and unfortunately that could be affecting the animals and the population in general. It's something really worrying, and we need to find out what's happening with the population.
the farm has had anywhere between 9 to 16 armed guards protecting the borders during night and day, and they've done a really good job at keeping out the poachers. It's a reality that we have to face, because if we don't do that, then we're going to suffer from the syndrome that the park suffers from, and that's this repeat poachers coming in over and over again and removing the animals from the park. On one side, we have this paradigm of having a set-aside reserves, but I don't think that's going to be the future of our planet. Setting aside reserves and parks that don't allow people to go in there is nice, and I think it has to be done in some areas, but we really need to start figuring out how to get these 9 million people into the forest so they can appreciate what's going on outside of the cities.
aquí entonces. Aquí.
I know of at least 3 jaguars that have been killed just outside the property. They've been confirmed, but there are actually rumors of 11. That's a lot. Recently, there seems to be a growing business for jaguar skins, so we're trying to find out who is behind it. I was telling Fernando how sad I am, because it's as if they were threatening members of my own family. I don't know what we'll do with these hunters. It worries us. It's really frustrating. So many years of work, of love, of sacrifices, just to witness our jaguars being killed.
The introduction of invasive species, deforestation, loss of habitat. The menaces to the tropical forest are numerous, and quite frankly, we may be running out of time.
There's no time to feel sad about this situation, because that's not going to fix anything. I think we can work together mainly for the animals, but also for future generations, so that when they look back, they'll say, yeah, those guys knew that it was a problem and they came up with a solution, and they will be thankful for that.
I'm optimistic because I believe we can change things, and if people and human being realizes the importance, there's still something we can do, but we are right on the edge. If we protect jaguars, that means that we can protect a vast majority of biodiversity.
Fortunately, everywhere on the planet, there are scientists who are organizing to protect habitats. And I think we should heed them more, because these men and women really dedicate their lives to saving the planet's biodiversity, and they are all saying the same thing. If we organize, we are capable of great things, but it is important that we act, and that we act now. Our expedition around the world led us to discover and appreciate the extraordinary biodiversity of our planet. Of all the species encountered during our travels, there is one that particularly impressed us, an animal that looks like a siren, and that has been the source of many legends over time, a creature that continues to fascinate mankind. This creature is the manatee.
The manatee is a marine mammal in the order Sirenia. Sirenia for sirens, which in some languages means mermaids. The mermaid legend likely first arose in the thoughts of lonely sailors who imagined the body of a woman with the tail of a fish. This history also links the manatee with the siren song, a kind of luring marine lament, which some believe is the origin of the French name for the manatee, lamentin. The manatee lives in coastal areas, environments that are becoming less and less wild, which is why coexisting with humans has become a problem. Coastlines are increasingly inhabited by humans, destroying essential habitat for this threatened species. The implications are troubling. Manatee populations are threatened with extinction around the world. Located south of Mexico and east of Guatemala, Belize is home to a population of manatees that use the country's bays and lagoons as essential habitat.
Belize is a popular tourist destination. Each year, the country hosts tourists from around the world. And when you say tourists, you're inevitably saying boats. Lots of boats. Since manatees are rather slow creatures living near the coast, it's almost inevitable that there will be collisions between manatees and motorized vessels. This is probably the main threat to the survival of populations of manatees at this time.
But Belize has decided to participate in efforts to protect manatees. Each year, scientists gather in the tiny village of Gales Point near Southern Lagoon, which opens directly onto the Caribbean. The scientists work closely with local residents, whom they involve in their research. Some scientists travel great distances to study manatees here. Biologist James Buddy Powell is in charge of the research, and he has worked with veterinarian Bob Bundy for decades.
It's going to be a good day to go out and catch some manatees today. It's a lot of preparation, takes a lot of people,
It's made in China. Like
and we're ready to do it. We have a lot of experience catching manatees, so a very experienced team. It's not very risky. The weather's perfect, and we're almost set to go. Let's take the poles and move them up to the... Let's actually take the poles and move them to the other boat. This is Southern Lagoon, lots of manatees here. What we'll do is we'll take the boat. There's a small channel that winds up to this smaller lagoon, and it's called quasi-trap, which is an excellent place to catch. It's usually very calm in there, shallow enough, hard bottom, and there's some holes there that manatees go into and a food that they prefer called haloduli. And so we're going to start there. It's a good place to start. It's very safe. It's an easy catch if we find some there. It's a good place to start for us. Great. Okay.
Basically, we're on patrol. All the eyes on the water help us to see the manatee. When the sun's out and it's nice and clear, we can use our polarized glasses and we can see disturbances in the water. We're looking for mud plumes and things that might be associated with manatees foraging, feeding, or cavorting. And then when we see something, we'll drive into that situation, assess it, and then set the nets.
To find a manatee in the turbid waters of the lagoon is a real challenge. You're forced to rely on ripples in the surface of the water to try to figure out where the animal might be. Or you look for some kind of mud cloud in the water, a mud cloud created by the movement of their tail fins. And, if you're lucky, you'll see a small part of its head when it surfaces to breathe. So, it takes a lot of experience, sharp vision, and I must say, a bit of luck.
When the team spots a manatee, Buddy quickly begins to circle the animal with his specially designed boat. The net is quickly deployed, and everyone involved, biologists, veterinarians, and local residents, prepare to dive into the lagoon to secure the net.
Everyone jumps in the water around the edge of the net to stabilize the net to make sure it doesn't drift. And then once we get all the boat situated and the net situated, we put more people in the water with a small net that would just go in and sort of scoop them out with that small net in principle to bring them into our capture net, which is where we do all the medical work. This is such a great spot, not only because it's a good place for manatees, but the bottom and the conditions are just perfect for these types of captures, which is what has allowed us to do such a long-term study like this.
One, two, big one. Pull, man. Pull, man.
Bring the board. How many places can you go and find yourself next to an animal that weighs 1,000 pounds, kneel down and pat it on the back without getting trampled to death or bitten or speared or whatever? I love manatees. I didn't learn anything that discouraged me not to. In fact, every day I get up, we learn something new. They're a marine mammal. They're very aquatically adapted. So they're quite different than most other mammals, so different that they're in their own order, the order Sirenia. Now, they're more closely related to elephants. If you look at them, the teats are underneath the front flippers here. The nails are similar. The skin is a little bit similar. But rather than having a trunk like an elephant that they can use to pick up a peanut and bring it up to their mouth, manatees have this very prehensile muzzle, and it's used to grab vegetation, cull it up out of the bottom, and bring it into their body. Manatees have these hairs on the body, and we see the vibrissae on the front of their face, which are like a whisker on a dog or a cat. But these are also whiskers on the body, and they act like a lateral line. So this manatee doesn't need its eyes to see you in the water. They're using the sensory organ on their body that enables them to basically visualize what's going on around them. They lost their hind limbs. Of course, they don't need them to propel through the water. They use these for steerage, their front flippers, and the tail is a spatula that helps them kind of push and propel themselves through the water effortlessly.
From afar, the strange silhouette of the manatee may explain why sailors once associated this marine creature with the mermaids of their imaginations.
Once the manatee is caught and brought on board the research vessel, biologists and veterinarians set about their tasks. And they are truly impressive. They have a very well-established work protocol. It's almost as if we were in a hospital and a dozen doctors gathered around to produce a complete health diagnosis.
Just go right here, and you have to kind of feel in the gum. There we go. We just placed a temperature probe between her gum and her last molar, just so we can get a sense of her body temperature, her oral temperature. So if it rises too much, we'll know to keep her cool. Okay. So if she needs to breathe, just over the nostrils.
11:16. Off center 11:15. We're measuring the subcutaneous fat layers, and that will give us an information about a nutritional condition. It doesn't tell us the condition of the fat per se, but it gives us the thickness of the fat.
Sticking. Zero, zero.
A sort of microchip is implanted under the skin of the animal to facilitate identification. With the aid of this chip, the scientists can then identify each animal by its unique number. So, if a manatee is recaptured, the medical team will be able to monitor their patient over a period of time. It really is medical care applied to animals.
Belize certainly has been very proactive in terms of trying to establish protected areas for manatees. By protecting manatees, you're also protecting habitat, and very important productive habitat like coastal estuaries and lagoons. So manatees are known as a flagship species that helps us be able to protect these types of habitats that might be threatened.
Before the animal is released, it must be weighed. A delicate operation that requires special care, since the normally docile manatee can sometimes react violently.
Okay, we just need...
$8.32. Bring it on, bring it on. Let's go. One more.
Buddy Powell has been fascinated by manatees since childhood. This Floridian encountered these strange marine creatures at an early age. They lived in the waters surrounding his hometown. The manatees of Florida are probably the best known of their species on the planet. They have become particularly well known as victims of collisions with boats. One day, someone was fascinated enough to make a film about the manatees. That person was Jacques Cousteau, and Buddy Powell's destiny changed completely after he met the captain of the Calypso.
When I was 14 years old, the fellow named Daniel Hartman was working on his PhD from Cornell University, and he came to my hometown, Crystal River, which is now very famous for manatees. So he was out on the water, and it was obvious he was out of place, and so I was kind of curious because I was on the water all the time, and finally went up to him and we started talking. And we ended up becoming friends. He sort of took me on as his field assistant, and I worked with him for a couple years while he was doing his PhD work. And then a number of years later, he had written an article for National Geographic, and the Cousteaus saw this article and wanted to do the first documentary on manatees. And so he told them, get a hold of this kid in Crystal River, which they did. And so I ended up being their guide for over a year when they were doing this first documentary. And that's really what began the momentum for all the conservation work and protected areas and measures that we have for manatees today.
Manatees are very docile creatures, and they're docile because they're very intelligent. And we use an adage, an elephant never forgets. Well, manatees have to remember. They have to have rote memorization that allows them to go back to a place and find it later. And the training starts when they're very young. The mother trains the baby, and then the baby picks up on that and emulates that. They don't produce a lot of babies, one baby every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So they invest a lot into making sure that baby has all of the tools it needs to meet the challenges in the environment. If it doesn't, if it falls short, the animal will die. So these animals, to be long-lived, have to invest a lot of effort into the rearing of the young.
Pull, man! Pull back, go back.
Okay, let's pull that net that way, bring him over slowly.
This time, it's not one, but two manatees in the research boat. The small vessel is getting a bit crowded, but the biologists and veterinarians have a well-established routine, and it is amazing how efficiently their work is accomplished, particularly impressive when one realizes that their research will serve the scientific community of the entire world.
Manatees are great. I think that I am passionate about because it's something unique to my country.
Okay, hey guys, we need to roll her a little bit.
With Buddy Powell and Bob Bundy and the whole team, it's been wonderful. We've built up this data set like no other for manatees, especially the Antillean subspecies. We're getting information that we can apply for management decisions in this country, and we've been able to take advantage of what they have learned, and we can implement it. So that's a great advantage for us.
And you can always do scrub a bigger and then alcohol.
We're going to take a tissue biopsy that we use for genetics to tell us the fingerprint of this manatee, basically. And to get that sample, we just use some Novocaine. We apply it with a needle into the skin here. This is the same medicine that numbs the skin that the dentist would use to extract a tooth or to do dental work, and we use it on the manatee so that it's less painful when we take the biopsy sample. We use it for several things: stable isotopes to look at the food the manatee's been feeding on and what his chemical makeup is, and then we'll use it for genetics in pedigree studies and fingerprinting studies of individuals. We've actually done quite a few studies that have been published on these Belizean manatees to tell us a little bit more about evolution of manatees in general.
So it's pretty special this morning. 2 females, one of whom may be pregnant. And it's really amazing to see how well all the veterinarians and biologists have been trained. They can do a whole series of procedures in about 50 minutes. It's really a well-oiled machine. And it's extraordinary to see how quiet and calm the animals are.
Are we ready?
Okay, ready?
We do call this a cookie, and we do that because it resembles an Oreo. Dark on the outside, white on the inside. It's not meant to eat, but it gives us the food for knowledge, and we learn through studying this little piece of tissue. It gives us some information about this manatee, which helps us to understand about manatees literally in general.
And right now, how's the population status here?
Yeah, well, actually, it's pretty good. You know, they don't have a lot of allelic diversity, so there isn't a lot of variation. A lot of the individuals are similar-like, but maybe they're similar-like for certain reasons, that they perfected this habitat, this environment, and that their DNA is best used and utilized to achieve that.
I'm here. I made it.
Okay, now bring that.
Things got a bit out of hand during the weighing. Our 2 manatees became a bit edgy and knocked overboard everything that was nearby, including the huge structure that was used to weigh them, along with some biologists, veterinarians, and even members of the film crew. Really an impressive display of strength. With their caudal fins, they can break your bones in a flash. There are occasions when it's best just to abandon ship.
He's going to be trying to flap all up in here. I'd rather his tail be back there.
What is surprising is to see how these remarkably calm animals can become so aggravated. They're able to lift their tails approximately 1 or 1.5 meters. This is extraordinary, so it's best not to be too close at such moments. The manatees weigh 1,000 pounds. Because it's so quiet and 4 or 5 people are around, everything looks okay. But as soon as it starts moving, it's not long before everyone's overboard.
Yeah. Amanda, do we have a temperature?
A lot of students come from abroad to gather data, to collect and do analysis in the US in particular, but it's an opportunity for Belizean students as well. And what I'd like to see is more Belizeans getting involved, more Belizeans on the ground, collecting the data and using it for advanced degrees, but we haven't been able to capitalize quite as much on that as we'd like to. So that is something that I'd definitely like to push for the future.
When we first started this study, or early on, Jamal would show up at our dock at the morning, sort of looking at us. He was about 11 years old, and he kept wanting to get on the boat, but he was too young. We found out later that Jamal, with some of his friends in the village there, that they, instead of playing cowboys and Indians, they'd play Buddy and Bob and take turns on who would get to drive the boat and who would catch the manatees. And so they would pretend that they were circling the manatees. And later on, he was just so enthusiastic, we invited him to come on board as a volunteer. And then just one thing led to another. He was always part of our crew, and he continued every year. And I think it enabled him to sort of see that there was more out there besides just what was in his village. And so he's continued on through his high school and now gotten his AA degree from the university. And he adores manatees and science and research and learning.
This conservation field, I think, is something that I was born to do. And it's not necessarily a job to me, but it's my playing field. It's where I like being. It's where I'm in my glory, and it means more than anything to me. Because this is where my passion is, this is where my heart is.
As a scientist, it's extremely important to write scientific papers and publish. But what's really fulfilling, but also extremely important, is the people you leave there and leave behind and what you can contribute. Just like Daniel Hartman, again, did for me when I was 14 years old.
Jamal, a child of the village, grew up and today is living his dream. Acknowledged internationally for his work as a biologist and manatee researcher. Just as Jacques Cousteau once did for a boy in Florida, Buddy Powell. Dreams come true, and careers are forged out of passion and determination.
Despite conservation efforts in Belize, despite campaigns to try to reduce the speed of vessels, collisions are inevitable since these manatees are slow animals and they use the same areas as the boats. And collisions with boats may have truly catastrophic consequences for manatees.
This young manatee lost its mother when she was hit by a boat. In poor health, the orphan was rescued by Jamal, the young local biologist. Fortunately, today it is doing better, thanks to the care of a manatee rehabilitation center, Wild Tracks.
Wild Tracks is a non-profit organization, and under that we have a number of programs, including the Manatee Rehabilitation Program, that cares for injured and orphaned manatee calves throughout the country, are brought in here when they need care. So our role with that is to raise them up, give them the skills to be able to then survive once they're released back into the wild.
When did you start Wild Tracks?
The actual overall programs we started in 1990. Back in 99 we started the Manatee Rehabilitation Program as one program under the organization as a whole.
And how many manatees did you have since?
So far, 10. Thankfully not huge numbers, which would be a really bad indication of the status of the wild population, the pressures, but yeah, it's normally 1 or 2 manatees here in care at any one time.
And how long are they staying in average?
About 2 to 2.5 years. So here we're going to have the crew forming a line. We're going to move him through the gate and catch him on the other side here. So it takes enough people to have going up here, one to make sure he's not in a corner, move him through the gateway, and then we'll guide him into this corner for actually lifting him out. This guy came in very emaciated in February of this year. His condition was critical, so we had to get food in. So he's been nasogastric tube fed, so a feeding tube up the nostril down into the stomach, and stayed on with that. So it's rather invasive, but it is what saved his life. You know, without that, there's just no way we would have kept him alive.
The residents live in a natural basin within the lagoon that has been fenced off. Because they do not suffer the stress of an artificial environment, it is easier to reintroduce them into the wild.
Bring that forward. Right, you ready to lift? Yep. Okay. Count 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Lift your end a little bit higher. Leo, keep him straight. A little bit higher. Keep his tail off if you can. Just take him head in and then turn him round. That's good. Great. Now, Leon, if you could do the feed net, or maybe if you do the water. Okay. So we wait for that breath, insert the tube whilst the nostrils open. You see the valves closed, and then we push the tube in slowly and carefully, trying to ease it to make sure it goes down the esophagus into the stomach. We have the tube measured against the back end of his flipper to make sure that we're reaching into his stomach about here. When he came in, we were feeding him twice a day. Now we've cut it down to once a day, even once every second day, because we're trying to encourage him to eat more of the seagrass himself, because this is obviously a pretty invasive system, but when you've got a very emaciated animal, you have to get food in as fast as you can and get the condition up. He's still probably 80 to 100 pounds underweight as compared with what he should be at this age. They'll lose weight really fast, but it takes quite a long time to put it on, and this is one way of getting the food into him. He came in at just under a year old, just pre-weaning, minimum weaning age, which is a very difficult age to get them onto a bottle. So he refused to take a bottle. His condition was so poor, we had to get nutrient into him immediately. The only option we had was to start him on nasogastric tube feeding. We can make up a very high energy, high protein milk mix such as this, and we know he's getting everything apart from the dribbles I'm spilling out here.
I suppose that, you know, every survival animal are very important because the population is pretty low around here.
Indeed. As an endangered subspecies, you know, it's critical to get as many back into the wild population as possible. Estimates vary for the Belize population anywhere from 500 to a maximum of 1,000 animals. Even if it's 1,000, that's not a very big population, and that's the biggest population of this species in its range. So getting each individual back into the breeding population is clearly a very important task.
So she will be happy to go back in the water.
Indeed. Yeah, it's always straight down and take that breath of air and done for today. Okay, well, let's move him in. Okay, ready? And down. So he'll probably go down and come up about halfway along the pool for a fresh breath of air, I suspect.
Another resident was waiting at the door of the enclosure. In fact, every day when the darkness sets in, Twiggy, a former resident of the center, returns to spend a night safely inside the enclosure.
So now Twig is fitted with a radio transmitter that floats up. It makes it a lot easier finding out where she... In fact, there she is, just over there. You can see her just coming in. So we'll have one of the girls open up, let her in, then someone else can feed her down here.
And this one is an old friend of you.
Yep, she's been here for 3 years now. She's accustomed to us and vice versa. And actually the last bit of rehabilitation is standing back, so they're learning to step back from people. In the first 6 months after release, it's also, okay, no one anywhere near, because obviously as a wild animal, she's got to keep away from people rather than coming in, the way she's still accustomed to coming in for feed. She's been on learning to live out loose for about 18 months now, so one of our assistants from the village started taking her out loose, supervised, taught her how to eat seagrass. He'd actually pick seagrass and eat it himself to show her. Gradually we'd step back, so instead of being with her, we'd leave her alone for an hour, 2 hours, until now she's let out about 6 o'clock in the morning. She'll go out all day grazing seagrass, and then about 4:30 in the afternoon she's coming back in to have a little banana shake and stay in her sleeping area for the night. So yeah, it's quite a good routine she's got, and we're just gradually extending, taking her further out, letting her explore further out. Now she has a transmitter, so we know where she is, until eventually she'll be going out through the creeks out to the bay itself.
Buddy, Bob, and their team have left Gales Point for the busy waters of Belize City. Here, maritime traffic represents a real threat to the manatee population.
Hunting is what has caused the population of manatees in Belize and generally the Americas to be at a threatened level. Sailors, pirates that would use the waters in Belize used to hunt the manatees, and there is evidence around these keys as well, where Moho Key, which is not too far off Belize City, was a hunting site. Probably the Mayas also hunted them.
Now the hunting has been replaced by them being killed by boats, and so I feel like more than you can study an animal and watch its decline, but at this point, the information that we gather and what we do is aimed at trying to reduce those threats. All right, guys, let me assign boats. Okay. One of you go on the capture boat. You decide. And then the other person can go on the fisheries boat. You're on the capture boat. Trenton, you're swimming. You guys stay where you are. Maureen, you're on the fisheries boat.
We get about 20 to 25% of deaths that will be positively identified as being from a watercraft. And we can identify that either from external injuries, where the propeller will severely scar the animal, where it would open up the animal, or we would open the animal during a necropsy. And when we open it, it looks fine from the outside, but when we open it, we might find a broken rib that has maybe punctured the lung. And the only thing that would cause that would be a boat.
So if we were in Florida, this entire coastline would just be condominiums and houses and boats going this way and that way that the manatees would have to contend with. You would never see an animal without one boat strike. One of the reasons we're doing this study in this particular place is that there are boats going into the Belize River. So we were trying to find out through our radio tracking, how often they are moving over towards the river to be in harm's way. And so With that information, then the government of Belize can act by putting up speed zones where it's necessary, where there's the most chance of boat and manatee conflicts, so they can make sure that at least in those areas, boats are going slowly enough so that not only do they not disturb manatees, but they don't hit them.
There's no Sharpie.
No Sharpie in there?
This time, the team hopes to install a satellite transmitter on a manatee to better identify which areas the species uses and eventually to regulate maritime traffic.
In the future, if they're not already, these animals are having problems with interactions with humans and boats and those kinds of things. We don't see evidence of a lot of scars like we do in Florida, but eventually we will. Once it's scarred, it's either scarred for life or it's dead. And when we see these scars, they came close to dying, but they survived and persisted. But they're going to carry that scar the rest of their life.
Flipper 3 now.
Tourism certainly is a wonderful thing for Belize. It's one of our biggest income earners for the country. But we try to make sure that we are informing tour guides in particular where the hot spots where manatees are, that they should be careful when they travel. For instance, the Belize River. That is a very beautiful location in Belize. It is used very heavily by tour boats, and it's also used very heavily by manatees.
Putting together, inserting the batteries for the satellite transmitter. This is what we will deploy in just a few minutes. It's all full of air, so it floats like a buoy. It has two transmitters. One transmitter transmits up to several satellites, and it has another transmitter that allows us to be able to follow it on the ground, on the water.
We're going to wait to shoot garbage.
How long will it last?
It'll last about a year. The satellite part, it actually has a salt switch, so that when it submerges under the water, it shuts it off. And then when it comes up to the surface again, it starts transmitting again, and that helps us save batteries.
Once a year.
Excellent.
Protecting their habitat is the only real hope we have of saving the last survivors of this endangered species.
Despite these conservation efforts in Belize, there are only between 500 and 1,000 manatees left. A very small number. Research must continue. The use of satellite transmitters will allow a better understanding of manatees' territories and come up with measures to protect habitats essential to their survival.
One of the things we're trying to find out are where the most important areas are that they go. And we do this so that when we're trying to establish protected areas, it's fine to protect one area here, but if the animal spends 50% of its time someplace else, you want to make sure that both areas are protected. So, and also the corridors in between. So this allows us to be able to find out what its critical habitat is and the corridors that they use to move in between. A number of them that we have tagged and with a collaborator in Mexico have come down from Mexico to Belize, to Southern Lagoon, for example, which we think might be an important nursery area. So this is the tether I was talking about. It won't knot. It's semi-flexible, and this prevents it from getting caught on and knotted up in mangrove. It's got a the belt has a weak link in it, and there's also a weak link inside here, so that if it does get caught on something, it will snap free. Okay.
we're just making sure that the tag works. So when you release the animal, you don't come out here and not able to find the tag because the frequency doesn't match the tag before you put it out. Because once it's out there, it's gone now.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We can figure out the areas that they spend most of their times, and that will give us an idea to better manage the area that they hang out and protect them better.
Some people have asked that question, why is it important to protect manatees? These animals are resilient, they're tough, and with protection and with a buy-in from the community and the people, we will have manatees around for future generations to enjoy.
Buddy and Bob's team have captured over 20 manatees in under 2 weeks. This population is a model for research around the world, and this fantastic work will help us learn more about it. Manatees are excellent indicators of ocean health, especially in coastal regions. But they face the same threats everywhere: habitat degradation, pollution, and obviously, collisions with boats. Fortunately, there are scientists who dedicate their lives to protecting threatened species like the manatee. And the next generation is taking up the torch. Young people like Jamal, or Buddy before him, are passionate about the environment and protecting biodiversity. Dreams and passions often inspire great stories. When young people decide to save a threatened species when they grow up, it inspires hope. Dreams like these can be contagious and inspire others. That's what happened to Buddy years ago, who was inspired by Jacques Cousteau. And now Jamal, from the village of Gales Point, is taking inspiration from new mentors like Buddy and Bob.
L'extraordinaire biodiversité de nos océans s'offre en spectacle à chaque plongée. Nous avons la chance, au cours de cette mission, de parcourir la planète pour aller vérifier l'état de cette biodiversité et apprécier toute sa beauté. Mais nous constatons aussi la grande fragilité de l'équilibre entre les espèces. Ce que la nature a mis des millions d'années à peaufiner, à adapter, nous sommes malheureusement en train de le détruire rapidement.
Nous avons mis le cap sur l'île Coco, une île rendue célèbre par ses légendes de pirates. On dit que des trésors dérobés aux bateaux espagnols y seraient enfouis quelque part. C'est pourquoi on l'appelle d'ailleurs l'île au trésor. Mais pour les scientifiques, le véritable trésor se trouve probablement dans cette biodiversité marine exceptionnelle. La puissance dans les nageoires d'une tortue verte, c'est vraiment quelque chose de très impressionnant. En fait, les tortues vertes sont d'excellentes nageuses et donc leur anatomie a évolué pour créer une masse musculaire très importante au niveau des articulations, ce qui rend évidemment notre opération de capture plutôt périlleuse. Une fois à bord de l'embarcation pneumatique, la tortue a pu être transportée jusqu'au Sedna Cap, où l'attendait toute une équipe de biologistes. Nous avons une sorte d'ascenseur spécial pour les animaux de grande taille, et donc cette tortue a pu être descendue jusqu'à l'atelier du Sedna, où les biologistes l'attendaient pour installer les différents émetteurs. Pour ce voyage à l'île Coco, nous avons invité deux grands spécialistes des tortues, deux sommités qui travaillent régulièrement dans ce secteur du Pacifique. Ces deux biologistes sont devenus activistes par la force des choses, car ils croient véritablement que c'est par l'action concrète, sur le terrain, qu'on peut faire changer les choses.
Oh, let me see. Is there any 4062 there? No. See, now it's only 181. Just to verify. Super verify.
1074974.
Okay. Okay, we hold it here.
Okay, so take the measurements and then you do the tagging and I'll tag her. And you can tag her and all.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold her there, Cheapo.
Okay.
Okay, put this right there where the skin starts and the shell ends, or like right there, okay.
74 and a half.
Yeah, 74 and a half, yeah, let's say 74 and a half. And width?
What do you got?
72.
72. This is the first time we've caught this turtle. Hasn't been marked before. Putting a tag on now, permanent tag.
Okay.
Check the lock.
Check. Perfect. PE 312.
Where are you going to do it?
Same place. Right. Okay, it's locked. PE 313.
This is an acoustic tag, and these are the same tags we use for the sharks. And since we already have a system of listening stations around the island for the sharks, then we use the same system for the turtles. Okay. Okay. We've had turtles with the tag on for over a year, sometimes a few months. And so sometimes it seems like they're pretty permanently in there with cables and everything, but they do fall off.
In the old days of sailors, couldn't keep fresh meat on board for very long, so they would stop at islands like this, grab turtles, put them on their back, and they could last for months. Come down once a week, just pour some water on it to keep it from drying out, and then they could use the meat as they needed. So turtles played a major role in the exploration of the world.
Okay.
The green turtles of the Caribbean that people are more familiar with are purely vegetarians. they eat turtle grass, which is an algae. So they grow very slowly. This satellite transmitter will send a signal up to a satellite up in space, and then that will send the signal to my computer, and I'll know right where this turtle is every day. We're trying to understand what the migration routes are. So when this turtle's here at Cocos Island, it's protected because there's a 12 nautical mile no fishing zone. As soon as it swims out of that, we don't know. It could get caught on a fishing line and be killed. So our goal is to understand where these turtles go and then create marine protected swimways. So if they're swimming to Galapagos, we want to connect their swimways. We want to understand their migration routes and be able to protect them by closing fishing areas. So as you're doing that, yeah, we want to try to keep it kind of as hydrodynamic as we can. We've had turtles go as far as Panama. We've had turtles go to Costa Rica. We've had turtles go to Costa Rica and then swim up the shore all the way to El Salvador and then head back out to sea. And a lot of our turtles like it in Cocos and stay right around here.
The juveniles, or the young ones, they definitely stay here for a number of years. For instance, we have turtles that we tagged here 2.5 years ago, and they're still there in Dirty Rock, for instance. So the young turtles live here, and the adults just swing by, and then they take off and continue their migration.
There are different policies to protect turtles, for instance, special hooks, circle hooks, which they're less likely to swallow. But the best way is to protect the ecosystem, protect the habitat that they need to live. So if we can close those areas to fishing, then we'll have turtles for our kids to see and our grandkids.
Après quelques heures de travail, notre invité peut maintenant retourner à la mer. Randall et Todd ont vérifié le bon fonctionnement des émetteurs et cette tortue verte du Pacifique peut maintenant recouvrer sa liberté.
Now we have to be careful with the satellite transmitter. So let's do the right back here. Oh, you got the hook? Okay. Careful with the satellite transmitter. Okay. I'm basically, yes, in love with turtles. All right. Thank you.
Thanks to you. Je pense qu'on peut dire mission accomplie. Les données maintenant qui seront recueillies par cet émetteur satellite vont permettre de mieux connaître les déplacements de cette tortue verte et permettront peut-être un jour d'établir des corridors de protection, des zones bien définies où la pêche sera interdite. Mais il faut bien sûr encore beaucoup de campagnes de sensibilisation parce qu'il reste beaucoup de travail à faire avant que ces mesures, pourtant essentielles, se réalisent.
Good.
Les plages constituent des habitats essentiels pour les tortues marines. Les tortues viennent y pondre leurs œufs depuis des millions d'années et c'est ce qui garantit en quelque sorte la survie des différentes espèces de tortues sur notre planète. Pas de plage, pas de tortues marines, c'est aussi simple que ça. Mais ces plages se sont beaucoup transformées au cours des dernières années depuis qu'une espèce a connu un boom démographique exceptionnel, l'humanité. Non seulement nous utilisons et transformons ces plages pour nos loisirs, mais le développement immobilier réduit sans cesse ces habitats essentiels pour les tortues. C'est intéressant parce qu'une tortue va revenir pondre ses œufs exactement au même endroit là où elle a vu le jour il y a très longtemps. Elle va revenir évidemment quand elle aura atteint sa maturité sexuelle, ce qui peut prendre 15, 20, 30 ou même 40 ans chez certaines espèces. Après toutes ces années, lorsque les tortues reviennent, elles vont plutôt retrouver des plages qui sont souvent peuplées avec des maisons, des lumières qui les désorientent complètement la nuit ou des terrasses d'hôtels aménagées. C'est donc pas facile pour une tortue de venir pondre ses œufs maintenant en toute sécurité.
Nosotros. ¿Usted es de aquí?
Sí, nosotros.
¿Qué es lo que representa las bolas para usted?
Ay, no sé, algo lindo que yo siento. Algo lindo que a mí me nace y que yo no quisiera que se desapareciera. Yo, digamos, cuando yo me crié chiquilla, yo me recuerdo que mi papá los llevaba a la playa. Decía, vamos a la playa a sacar huevos.
¿Y era normal?
Pero a comer.
¿Era normal?
Sí, para comer, no para negocio.
Era dentro de la cultura.
Sí.
¿Y cómo era la situación en esa época con las baulas?
Ay, no, era algo lindo, porque eran baulas en cantidad. Salían por noche, una cosa lindísima. Los biólogos decían que eso iba a ir bajando. Cada temporada ellos hablaban eso, pero decía yo, qué mentira, porque hay bastante baula. Sí lo hizo, sí lo fue. Y que ellos decían que había que cuidarlas porque las baulas se iban a ir.
¿Listos? Vamos.
Fueron años difíciles para las personas, muy difíciles. No había muchas fuentes de trabajo y la gente se dedicaba a la agricultura, ganadería, trabajar en los campos, pesca, y el dinero que ganaban no era mucho. Entonces había que hacer algo extra para ayudar a la familia, al sustento de las familias. Y un dinero fácil era venir a coger los huevos de las tortugas, ya que eran bien remunerados, bien pagados. Yo fui parte de esa gente. Ponías una estaca, pedazo de madera, de aquí caminabas 50, 100 metros, o si podías más, ponías más lejos. Entonces todas las tortugas que venían en ese pedazo eran tuyas. Antes venían 200, 300, hasta 400 tal vez en una noche. Ahora llegan en este tiempo, en este momento, 1, 2, 3, máximo ha sido 5. La gente venía, esperaban que estuviera lista, cogían los huevos, sacaban, los metían dentro de un saco. El comprahuevo te esperaba en la calle, en la salida, con un carro de cajón. Entonces en una noche podía sacar 100 docenas, 120 docenas, el que se ponía en una parte mejor. Y pagaban a 400 colones, si más no recuerdo, 500 o 600 colones la docena. Entonces, saca la cuenta, 100 docenas a 400. Buen dinero.
On vient de rencontrer 2 policiers Et évidemment, j'ai pris le temps de leur demander c'est quoi la réalité policière. Et évidemment, ça ne tentait pas de le faire devant la caméra, mais qu'est-ce qu'ils m'ont dit clairement, c'est qu'il y a des braconniers, surtout dans les secteurs de l'autre côté de la baie, et les gens vendent leurs œufs à travers, la couverture d'Ostinal. Ostinal, c'est un endroit à peu près à 2 heures d'ici où il y a des arrivadas énormes de tortues. Et c'est comme si, lui il me l'a avoué, c'est comme si c'était le blanchiment des œufs à Ostinal. Donc le fait que tout le monde dit que les œufs viennent d'Ostinal, donc on peut les vendre. Il m'a raconté même qu'il y avait des bars où pour $1, on peut avoir une super bière froide avec un magnifique coco, des tortues, avec un peu de tabasco. On boit ça, puis ça a l'air que c'est l'extase. Donc, dans la communauté, il y a encore une relation particulière avec les œufs.
Bueno, esta noche los voy a llevar a una de las playas que yo creo que es más importante para la anidación de tortugas negras en nuestro país, al menos. Se llama Nombre de Jesús. Está a escasos, es una zona boscosa, realmente muy agradable. No hay construcciones en estos momentos y realmente es un sitio muy apto para la anidación de estas especies. Crear y conservar especies que están en peligro de extinción como estas requiere un compromiso de todos. Hay grandes intereses, todos entendemos eso, el interés científico, el interés de las comunidades, el interés de los desarrolladores, el interés de los pescadores. Sin embargo, es importante lograr ese objetivo común que nos pueda potenciar ese esfuerzo de conservación. Otro de los actores claves importantes que de alguna manera ha ayudado.
Rodney, ¿es el único acceso para ir a la playa?
En realidad por vehículo sí tenemos este único acceso, sin embargo hay una posibilidad de ingresar vía caminando, pero hay que atravesar una montaña que de verdad se complica un poco el acceso.
Está difícil, ¿eh?
Tal vez por el centro de las rocas.
Y por ahí, sí. con una rueda por aquí y el otro por acá.
¿Listo? Sí. Perfecto. Muy bueno. Nuestro país tiene áreas protegidas y áreas no protegidas, específicamente este sitio que es un área de anidación importante en estos momentos. Estamos haciendo todo un esfuerzo de conservación para lograr de alguna manera crear alguna categoría de manejo en esta área y continuar con la protección de esta especie. Bueno, cada noche que llegamos a la playa, nuestro grupo se organiza. Una de las cosas que hacemos cuando entramos a la playa es que todo el grupo se reúne y camina toda la playa juntos. La idea es saber cómo está el comportamiento de la situación, si hay gente en playa, no hay, si hay tortugas. Entonces la idea es tener un momento de tranquilidad todos para ver la situación. Una vez que encontremos un rastro, nos detenemos en ese sitio, verificamos qué está haciendo la tortuga e inmediatamente nos ordenamos para trabajar todos juntos.
Y lo que me explicabas que éramos varios por la cuestión de los hueveros que...
La idea es que cuando entramos en grupo es precisamente para que si hay gente que le gusta sacar los huevos, vea, viene un montón de gente que son protectores de tortugas, entonces no es solo una o dos personas, son 3, 4, 5 que están respaldados todos juntos. No, sí, ya vi.
Esas rosas en el fondo, ¿qué son?
Creemos que pueden ser hueveros. Entonces, a partir de ahora vamos a manejarnos con más cautela.
Nous avons décidé de profiter de la nuit, nous aussi, pour assister au grand spectacle de la ponte des tortues vertes. Il est plutôt déconseillé de s'aventurer seul sur les plages dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica. Les braconniers sont encore très actifs et nous avons donc décidé d'accompagner l'équipe de biologistes du Parc national de Las Bolas dans leur effort de conservation des sites de ponte. Il faut le dire, dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica, ça joue dur. Depuis quelques années, le trafic de drogue est maintenant associé au trafic des œufs de tortue. Un braconnier peut toucher jusqu'à 300 $ la nuit simplement en revendant ses œufs de tortue sur le marché noir, des œufs qui se détaillent à environ 1 $ l'unité. En 2012, par exemple, un groupe de braconniers lourdement armés s'est introduit dans une crèche, une place où on recueille des œufs de tortue jusqu'à leur maturité. Ces œufs de tortue sont ramassés sur les plages par des bénévoles. Bien, ces bénévoles ont été ligotés et les braconniers se sont emparés de plus de 1500 œufs de tortue. Alors, le message est clair. Les trafiquants, comme les braconniers, ne veulent pas voir de protecteurs de tortues sur leur plage.
Okay, lo que vamos a medir primero es el largo del caparazón y posteriormente el ancho del caparazón. La idea es que usted vaya al otro lado y revise si hay una marca metálica o una identificación. ¿Okay? Y el número de identificación se lo dicta a ella para que ella pueda escribirlo en la hoja. Okay.
LO628.
Listo. Escriba ahí.
¿Cuánto?
Así, sí.
Oh, wow. ¿Qué lo que voy a hacer es que voy a hacer esto para poderlo ubicar. Ahorita es complicado porque hay muchas raíces.
¿Tiene claridad?
No, está ahí. Que anda hoy en playa. Entonces, hoy vamos a tomar la decisión de remover los huevos o reubicar estos huevos a otro sitio aquí en la misma playa. Entonces, posiblemente vayan a ver cuando los saquemos y los reubiquemos. Normalmente, si fuese un área protegida, entonces los niños quedan in situ. Entonces, tenemos protección del sitio 24 horas. Pero en este momento no tenemos posibilidad de proteger la playa 24 horas. Entonces nos vemos obligados a mover los huevos a otro sitio.
¿Cuántos hay?
Por el momento, 56.
¿Cuánto tiempo? ¿10 minutos más o menos si paran?
Ella puede durar 15 minutos, entre 10 y 15 minutos poniendo huevos.
Ahí sigue poniendo. Como las baulas tienen, ella tiene el momento que está poniendo los huevos, tiene un momento de trance, así como las hormonas, como las baulas o es diferente.
Sí, de hecho todas las tortugas entran en un proceso de trance para mover sus músculos y poder empezar a expulsar los huevos.
Okay.
Por esa razón, cuando ella termina, hay que irse porque entonces ya ella empieza a lanzar.
Vraiment touchant.
C'est incroyable de voir qu'elle fait tout le travail, ça fait une demi-heure qu'elle prépare tout, là, elle referme tout avec autant d'attention, puis là, les œufs sont même pas là. Elle sait même pas que ces œufs sont même pas là.
Lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a reubicar los huevos a un sitio seguro en la misma playa. Nuestros muchachos en estos momentos están haciendo el hueco para ubicarlos en este sitio que consideramos que es bastante seguro.
¿Cuántos metros va a ser esto?
La idea es que la profundidad sea similar a la profundidad del hueco que excavó la tortuga. Entonces estamos hablando de 45 a 50 centímetros. En estos momentos lo que Luis va a hacer es, una vez que ya lleguemos a la profundidad adecuada, vamos a moverlos en el sitio.
C'est ce qui est fantastique, c'est que pendant des générations, ces jeunes-là auraient normalement appris à devenir braconniers. Là, c'est la nouvelle génération. Et avec le changement de mentalité, tu vois, c'est tout à fait l'inverse. C'est les jeunes qui prennent les choses en main et qui essaient de sauvegarder les tortues. C'est pas mal.
Y posteriormente los vamos a ubicar con una plaquita de aluminio que nos permita a nosotros identificar en los próximos 45 días, que es cuando se da la exhumación de los neonatos. Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es que vamos a echar arena en el nido y Luis lo que va a hacer es que lo va a compactar. Entonces, la idea es compactar lo más que se pueda para que los huevos queden seguros en el sitio. Y posteriormente vamos a marcarlo con respecto al mojón que está allá.
If the poacher find the little stick.
Ahora lo que hacemos es que esta marca la vamos a enterrar, la vamos a poner sobre arena. Entonces la idea es que la marca es simple y sencillamente para que cuando lo encontremos podamos hacer relación de ese nido con esta hoja. Entonces así yo sé exactamente cuál tortuga fue la que puso estos huevos y cómo es el éxito de eclosión de esta tortuga con respecto a este nido y todos sus nidos.
Sobre estos 82, ¿cuántos van a ir al agua?
Los éxitos de eclosión, por ejemplo, la temporada anterior anduvo entre un 80 y un 90%.
C'est formidable de voir l'implication des jeunes bénévoles pour la sauvegarde des tortues. Leur travail sur les plages va permettre de sauver un grand nombre de tortues, certes, mais il va surtout servir au changement des mentalités. Ce changement, il est essentiel puisqu'on veut que la nouvelle génération modifie ses habitudes de consommation et condamne le braconnage. Je pense que cette nouvelle génération sera prête à tout mettre en œuvre pour sauver ces espèces menacées d'extinction.
Quedan muy pocas personas que se dedican al saqueo de huevos.
¿Qué es lo que cambió?
La mentalidad de las personas y el que Tamarindo haya crecido en cuanto a zona turística, porque hay más fuentes de empleo.
¿Y tú qué haces ahora?
Ahora trabajo como guía turístico. Después pasamos a ser promotores turísticos, de los cuales nos enseñaron un poco sobre biología de la tortuga.
La présence des braconniers a diminué sur les plages dans le secteur de Guanacaste, surtout depuis la création du parc national de Las Bolas. Aujourd'hui, les touristes viennent d'un peu partout pour assister au grand spectacle de la ponte des tortues. Mais le braconnage demeure un enjeu important dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica. et le trafic illégal des œufs menacent encore aujourd'hui la survie des espèces. Il est essentiel de poursuivre le travail d'éducation si nous voulons sauver ces espèces menacées d'extinction.
Entonces el objetivo es precisamente mantener la población que anida en el sitio. Y para mantener la población que anida en el sitio necesitamos que esos huevos se reproduzcan en el sitio. Y creemos que esfuerzos como los que estamos desarrollando en este momento son sumamente importantes si realmente queremos conservar especies tan importantes y hermosas como estas.
¿Cómo lo ve para el futuro?
Yo creo que hay un compromiso de parte nuestra muy fuerte. Estamos convencidos y la esperanza es poder recuperar estas poblaciones. Claro, pero eso ha sido un proceso de mucho tiempo, de educación de niños, de educación de gente y de compromiso. Y creo que el país, Costa Rica, cada vez adquiere más conciencia ambiental, más compromiso, hay más gente involucrada con eso. Y ahora no solo organizaciones, sino que las mismas comunidades se están involucrando en proteger estos recursos. Y lo más importante es que se van empoderando de esto y lo hacen propio. Yo creo que el hecho de que todas las noches trasnochemos o estemos trabajando hasta 6 o 7 horas logrando salvar todo nido es sumamente importante. Yo sé que tal vez este esfuerzo de conservación no lo veamos en el corto plazo y posiblemente nuestra generación no vea sus resultados y que los vayamos a ver en el largo plazo, pero posiblemente sean nuestros hijos y los veamos en los próximos 20 o 30 años y decimos, bueno, aquellos que trabajaron al principio tuvieron la visión y no desmayaron para conservar, ahora tenemos que continuar con...
Bueno, ¿vamos a dormir?
Vamos a dormir.
¿Vamos a dormir?
Vamos.
Por favor.
It's an animal which has a flexible shell because it's not hard bone. It's got little bones with cartilage in between. It's got a leathery shell, that's where it gets its name, a skin like a dolphin on the shell and on the flippers. It has a pink spot on the middle of its head, which is where the pineal gland is. It has some signaling for hormones. The skull's only half as thick there. They can dive a mile deep like a whale, so the shell collapses when they do that. Gets compressed, and they only eat jellyfish. So they must be our friend. We don't like jellyfish.
She looks to be about 145 centimeters long, probably around 18 to 20 years of age. And she's finished nesting. She's now in the process of early bearing. But you can see how delicately she's using her hands to pat the sand down and to pack it so that the eggs are in a nice location. And then she will start to camouflage and cover all around here.
When we came here, the number of turtles nesting per year was 1,500. And then it declined exponentially, so by big steps. To the present time, there's about maybe 50 nesting a year, but it's bottomed out the last 3 or 4 years, so we think that we're about due for a comeback. The new turtles that we see now are as a result of these students and volunteers who are on this beach for 20 years. And so, yeah, those are our turtles who are coming back.
You have an opportunity to see a dinosaur come out of the ocean and do all these very intricate behaviors. And I don't think there's anybody who ever walks away from this beach after seeing this experience that hasn't been awed.
The first time we came on the beaches here, Frank Palladino had to pay the local poacher for permission to work on a turtle after he took the eggs. Then he was okay if we studied the physiology of the turtle. After the park was founded and we got more involved and Frank taught the people English and we taught them some biology, now those poachers all became guides, ecotourism guides, so they make more money, cleaner. Now at this point their children are the guides.
Right now, this is a national park. There's national park guards. We have very good protection. There's an occasional poacher, which is usually a stranger who's come into town, and a lot of times they're Nicaraguans that come down here to work on construction of homes and so on, and they want to make some quick money so they can catch a bus and go back home and visit their family. But for the most part, the local people are no longer the poachers. As a matter of fact, whereas before they were against the park, it is the local people who are the strongest supporters of the park.
When we first came here, the people used to be poachers. They hated us. They didn't like us in the local village. Now we're friends. Our students are friends with the young people. I think it made a big difference. So the people see that these turtles are a benefit to them. I think it's very important.
Le travail acharné de Frank Palladino, James Potilla et des nombreux bénévoles est vraiment inspirant et prouve que les mentalités peuvent être changées. Mais il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire dans certains secteurs du Costa Rica. En 2013, par exemple, un jeune étudiant en biologie de 26 ans, Héro Mora Sandoval, a été enlevé avec 4 autres patrouilleurs sur une des plages du Costa Rica. Les trafiquants de drogue et les braconniers en ont assez de ces campagnes de sauvegarde des tortues. Ils veulent retrouver leur plage. Ce soir-là, le jeune biologiste a été ligoté, battu, et on l'a retrouvé avec une balle dans la tête. Héro Mora Sandoval est mort simplement pour avoir voulu sauver une espèce menacée d'extinction. Cette histoire tragique a fait le tour du monde et les groupes environnementaux ont préparé la riposte. Une récompense est maintenant offerte pour trouver les coupables et le gouvernement du Costa Rica a promis une enquête. La sauvegarde des tortues et la protection des plages passent bien souvent par le travail de passionnés, des bénévoles qui viennent d'un peu partout sur la planète pour participer aux efforts de protection des tortues. Malheureusement, l'intimidation et la violence sont souvent les armes des braconniers, et ça, peu importe où on se trouve dans le monde. Il faut continuer de valoriser les efforts de protection, encourager la présence de bénévoles sur les plages et tout mettre en œuvre pour initier les changements de mentalité qui constituent probablement le seul véritable espoir pour demain.